Meeting for October 27th, now 7 PM. And we have a hearing before us. Town of Walpole request for an ANRAD Conservation Commission public hearing. According to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 31, Section 40, the Walpole Wetlands Protection Act, the Walpole Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Notice hereby given the intent of Wall Street Development Corp. Confirm the wetland boundaries on 315 and 319 Summer Street and 16 Boyden Lane, Parcel A in Walpole, Mass. Plans are filed at the Conservation Commission office. Public hearing on the above matter will be held at Walpole Town Hall, 135 School Street, August 11, 2021, beginning at 7:20 PM. All interested persons requested to be present. Hearing is opened and continued. Representing the applicant. Let's see, do you have anything to read in here or not?
No.
No public comments? Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Lou Petrosi with Wall Street Development Corp. I have with me Scott Goddard from Goddard Consulting. They did the wetland flagging on the property. This was started out as flagging where we thought there was a lot of isolated wetlands within this area. But after a site visit by Allery and Landis, it was been determined that there is a vegetated wetland out there that you see highlighted in green. There's also an intermittent stream that runs along parallel to the property line on the, what is it, the southerly side?
The intermittent stream here, the green is the DPW, these are the pockets of isolated wetlands. Yeah. We have a couple of upland islands, very small, interior to the BVW, and then just submitted to you this evening were the last couple of tweaks, hot off the presses from GLM, which was the 3 additional wetland flags, 2 on the K series and 1 over here at 47R, which were the last adjustments that were agreed upon in the field with Nicole from my office. But I think we got everything captured at this point for a full delineation of BVW and bank on the site. So we're seeking to get an ORAD that would affirm all the wetland resource areas on site.
Okay, Landis?
Yeah, I just have a couple comments. So, well, Allery and I did go out and we walked the boundary. We were following the flags that were out there in the plan at hand, and there were some flags that were out there that weren't on the plan. So I thought that we were gonna have another conversation about why those weren't picked up or where they were, and that we didn't have the plan that had all the survey flags on it. So that's why, one reason why I was a little surprised you came in with one tonight, because there were some questions that were left at hand. And let me just finish first. So that was one of the things. And then the other was, when we were out, so let's see, the north end of the site near Stony Brook, there's a stream on that side also that comes down from the other side of Boyden Lane. And that hooks into the intermittent stream along. Yeah. And so that was reviewed under the Boyden Estates wetlands line. So when I went back from the field, I pulled that plan. And this wetlands line is different. You don't have all the flags because your flag kind of ends there, and we don't really know where it goes from there. But the past wetlands line took that whole. I'm gonna just go up here because.
Well, this parcel is off-site from our subject area too, so we're just showing.
So you're not asking for this to be part of the area?
Yeah, no, we are, but I mean, I think, what you're talking about down here?
Where this extends.
Yeah, no, we're not asking for anything down that
So
direction.
if you want to put the plan back up. The Boyden Estates line included this area.
Right.
Well,
And it's different.
yeah, I mean, there may be, you know, some differences that have occurred over the year, different interpretations, but you did walk that area.
Well, we walked the line, but we didn't walk the in-between. You know, how when you're following wetlands flags, you're just kind of
Yeah.
following wetlands flags.
right.
And until I went back to the office and pulled the plan and noticed how different it was, that I think that area needs to be looked at a little better. I know there was water there because I've seen that whole area, like, with a lot of standing water. It's very boulder, there's a lot of
Right.
stones, there's a lot of rocks. I don't know how much Nicole got her auger in between the rocks in the various areas in that.
I mean, part of it's certainly tricky to dig.
Yeah, it
I
is,
was
it's
up
a
there
really
too,
tricky
saw the-
site, yeah,
Saw the challenges with that, so.
yeah.
And then there's a lot of upland vegetation that's growing up into here, so I think it's one of these sites where, you know, originally we were trying to kind of micro identify areas, and they kind of all got connected, and, you know, a lot of jigs and jogs that are this line, so it's really done, I think, to a refined level. I've been in this area in here, you know, I saw the upland vegetation growing in there, the upland soil conditions. This whole thing connects and goes out to the east, you know, connecting to that stream, and then you're right, there's another stream that comes in and connects to it, and that's interior to the BBW. So I don't think that needs to be,
So you have upland plots in that area?
I'm not sure if we submitted a data sheet showing that.
Yeah, we're not looking for you mean the uplands that are interior? Of that?
The uplands in between the 2 points that were
Oh.
before called the wetlands and now they're not called the
Yeah,
wetlands.
well, again, that was what they flagged, so I have no idea.
You're asking to walk it again? Is that?
Yeah, I'm asking to look at that area again.
All right, because I was under the impression, because I wasn't on the sidewalk with you, Nicole, so I was under the impression that you guys did walk all that
We
area.
did, and I did mention that I wasn't totally comfortable with that area, that I'd seen water in that area, and it just seemed like there was a lot of boulders. Maybe it's a floodplain, but if you have any of the data points where you've listed wetlands, I mean, it's just, I know some wetlands go in and out, but this is a big chunk that was once a wetlands and now isn't, so I'm just kind of curious as to
But-
why.
Well, I will say one thing, the Boyden wetlands were done in 2006. We happened, I had no idea at the time, we happened to use that information on the plan for Boyden Estates. I didn't really think this would become, you know, this was a possibility that they would come to me and ask me to buy their land. So a good 15 years have transpired since that flagging was done. And I took it for granted that that was the line and didn't really think about what was beyond that. We just went with it, and that's how it came about. So if you remember when Comerford, whatever that little 3-lot subdivision was up above Boyden, they did a sewer easement through there, and then that's when that area was flagged, way back when that subdivision was built. So, you know, it is the flagging that's been established using whatever criteria that they
Right,
use,
that's
so.
my mistake, I should have taken more time that day and
No,
asked
no problem.
Nicole to do some more augering and some more thorough looking. And sometimes you just get caught looking at the line.
It's
You
a
just
very-
follow the wetland scientist around the line, and then afterwards realized really should have looked. Because you know, and I know, and some of the commissioners know, it's a tricky site. The whole area
If you want to
is
go, out, we're happy to have you,
tricky
we're
site.
happy to have you
So
go out
I just want to
again.
make sure we're not cutting any corners right now, so
It's
that's,
definitely a tricky site, and
Yeah.
that's probably why it's been interpreted differently over different
yeah.
people's
But I
eyes
know
over
there's
the
been a
years.
fair amount of water in that area,
Yeah.
and the water's gone all the way up to the edge of that house, because that house, we had a, order of conditions for it, and I went out there,
The Chelsea
like it
referred
was
to.
wet at the corner to me, so, lot, yeah, that house right there, yeah. We have no alteration lacks at the 25-foot, and,
No.
you know, there was definitely, I could remember seeing standing water and sedges and stuff, so I'm not sure what happened. Because soils don't change in 15 years, you know that, soils are soils, they develop and they don't go away.
Yeah, well, I have no problems. Nicole's on vacation this week, and next week, you know, if you can get out there and, so we can be on the agenda for the next meeting, I have no problems. I mean, that particular part of the site is not really, you know, relevant to the development if we go forward with it, because it's so far back from the other areas of the upland.
Right.
But if you want to go and take a look at it for the benefit of the people at Lot 5 Boyden, because they're
No,
affected.
it's not, no, it's for, because you've included that parcel that was part of Boyden Estates.
Right.
That was delineated before on this INRAD.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's your call. I mean, whatever you want to do. I mean, I have no problems.
I mean, it's mostly that, so if you wanted to stop at the property line of those two house lots,
Want to say that again?
So the applicant, the locus is showing this parcel, this parcel.
Yeah, no, we have this piece here. I carved this piece off.
That's part of it.
yeah, it's mostly that area
All right, we're gonna
there.
have to go out there and look
Yeah.
at it. Let's get it squared away and,
Yeah, and we're gonna have to request a continuation.
yeah. So when's your next meeting?
Let's go through the board.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Dean, any questions?
questions.
No
Bailey?
questions?
Emilio?
Nope.
Betsy?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Who was the first wetlands consultant you had for Boyden Estates back in 2006, do you remember?
Well, when we did Boyden Estates, we just took it off the original, I think it was Ecotech did it,
Okay.
you know.
Because I'm just thinking, okay, yes, 15 years have elapsed, but it's, in 2021, we're still talking about the difficult drainage on the lots in Boyden Estates, which are the abutters to this, and it's all one continuous difficult area. So even though it has been 15 years and wetlands can change, it really hasn't been 15 years for some of these lots. Some of these lots are pretty fresh in everybody's minds, like we were just talking about them like 2 weeks ago, which is unusual for a 15-year-old project to still be talking about it. So I would feel more comfortable if there was some coordination between the two sites as to where the wetlands were. So I concur with Landis that there needs to be some kind of,
So, excuse me,
Ordinance.
yeah, so what I would say is that there were never any, even under the Boyden Estates, but behind Lot 7 and Lot 6, there was no wetlands delineated behind those two lots, even under the original Boyden Estates plan. I think as you get further down the site, Betsy, yes, you get closer to that other stream, and there is,
but that's the area we're talking about.
right, yeah, exactly, exactly.
So good idea to continue to get this straightened out, because it just isn't,
This, and this will, you know, if we go forward with a development, this will obviously help that drainage that you're talking about, because we would be able to facilitate it in a better way than what's happening out there now, so.
also, I remember conversations about Boyden Estates, because it was rocky, and so the wetlands were in amongst a rocky terrain of, you know, people saying, well, then the water just disappears, or the water does this, and we can't find it anymore. And it feels like deja vu here, because that rockiness continues into that area that Landis pinpointed. So I want to especially not make a mistake this time around with that piece of
Sure.
the property.
It is very rocky, I
Yeah,
mean,
which makes it difficult to delineate.
Anything else, Betsy?
That's it. Thanks.
Al?
I concur with what Betsy says, and I see good reason for continuing to get more information.
Okay. You should put, if you're, where is the property line on that back?
yeah, well, that Lot 4, the back lot, it's carved out, it's just actually straight across.
Okay, that should be shown. It's what, so we know definitely what lot, what area you're talking about. Right now, you've got it, it's open-ended.
Yeah, this is, we call it parcel A on our
Well, whatever it is,
We'll have that on there the next time.
property line should be shown on there so we know where this is, and then we can
Sure.
compare, compare what was on the original Boyden Place submittal and that. Also, that dash line that goes down there, what is that? That should be labeled,
This one over here,
yeah.
is that a
Yeah, that's the sewer easement that comes off of Boyden Estates.
Okay, well, that should be labeled,
Okay.
so we know what that is. Okay, anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Please identify yourself for the record. Okay, hearing none. We'll continue this till,
Oh, excuse me, Landis.
where's
Do you know if you're available next week at all to walk this?
Yeah,
Okay, we'll have,
okay, yeah. Try and make myself as much available as possible.
and so if there's, I guess we should do the site walk, and if there's any changes, then we can either continue, revise the plan and continue, or just revise the plan.
well, we need, whatever changes are made, we need a revised plan.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So, and with whatever you find in the field, and plus what we discussed this evening.
Okay,
So November 10th, I don't see anything on the agenda. Is there anything on?
There's been two things added since we posted. So
Okay.
we have a 7 o'clock and a 7:10.
We have 7 o'clock and 7:10. So we'll make this 7:20.
I'll move that.
Okay, so we'll make that a motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
600, 5600.
So November 10th.
Yeah.
Well, this is November 10th at 7:20.
Fabulous. All right,
So let's do the
Thank
site
you.
visit, and then we can talk, and then
Right.
if we're satisfied,
right, I'll have her,
yeah, then you can revise the
Work it out.
plans.
you want me to come with the coffee, or what?
Donuts too,
Huh?
Lou.
Come on.
It's really tough footing around there.
Oh, it is, I already
Yeah,
fell once.
You don't
I
wanna
almost
hurt
broke my
yourself.
Like a donut.
Bagels. See you later.
Go to the new spot. You guys been to the spot, the new one?
No.
What? Oh, I wanna go. And the one in Norwood, the bagel spot? Maybe we shouldn't be talking about that.
I heard on the news, it's a hot spot. It's on the radio. They said
Yeah.
there's lines out the door.
Well, they had a small location and then they've expanded to the corner down in Norwood.
What's it called?
The spot. They have awesome bagels.
This one,
The radio did a thing on them, feature.
it's gonna be revised then.
Breakfast sandwiches in the morning. On the weekends, you cannot.
Whereabouts is it, by the DPW?
Okay.
You know Norwood Center? You know the green?
Yeah.
Right on the corner. Used to be a restaurant there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you know, something Two Beirut,
It looks like they got.
E2 Beirut or something?
Yeah.
Right next to that, I think.
Is that right? Okay.
Where are we?
Erosion control.
Oh,
Valerie, how was listening to Paper Crackle?
Awful.
It's so,
It's so hard to hear.
it's so hard to.
You've been there, right?
Yeah.
It's great.
I wish you could mute and like, without having to hold it down, because then you can turn your papers and, yeah. Yeah, it's bad.
People are talking, it's like,
Whenever you hit that, it just goes crazy. you know?
Yeah.
the city should invest in AI for voice recognition, so it just
Well,
CCs.
whenever the applicant
Yeah, you're
turns
right,
their
it
head
Oh, yeah.
to talk to the plan, I'm like, I want you to be able to push it.
They're pretty Valerie,
Like, go,
get with
And
it.
it stay off.
Right,
And then,
So you know we're on live TV, right? I think the
Read
television
this one, I
Yeah.
guess.
yes, we are.
guy, he's alarmed.
We're on live TV.
do you track who watches? Like, you have a report as to how many people tune in and comments? No? No analytics on the meeting?
Nothing.
Then I guess I'm not too worried about being on live TV.
I've
You
got
ready,
some
gang?
comments before.
behave yourself.
John?
Husband
John?
does it every once in a while, he
Thank you. Walpole Conservation Commission, 135 School Street, Walpole, Mass. Walpole Conservation Commission hold public hearing for the purposes of gathering public comment on revisions to Stormwater Erosion Control Bylaw regulations, Walpole Wetland Protection Bylaw regulations. Public hearing in the above matter will be held at Walpole Town Hall, 135 School Street, Walpole, Mass., January 22nd, 2022. I don't think so. 2021. Beginning at 7 PM. All interested person requested to be present. Hearing's been opened and continued. Time is now 7:20. 7:22. And, Ray Landis?
Oh, okay, hi. So, we have been continuing this public hearing for a while to review the stormwater management bylaw regulations. So I forwarded everyone a copy, right, didn't I? Sorry. A little wicked allergies lately, so, of what I'm pretty confident being the final draft. So, there was, I think from the last time, there was just a couple items that I know I wrote in my report, exactly where they were.
Was anything different than what you sent out?
No, no. So page 10, just under section 5, 1 fast track permit requires, requirements applied to proposed activities as described in sections. So we just added the sections that relate to the bylaw, 499-4A1 and A2, just to make that clearer. Is that, everybody happy with that?
Yes.
Do you want to go over each one, or just see if anybody has any comments, or?
Well, I was just gonna
Might
go
not,
over,
right?
there's just a couple, just,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll do it
Would you go
quickly if
ahead
that's
over it, and
okay.
we can Go through.
And then under the exempt activities, so the exempt activities are also in the bylaw, so if you want to make any changes, which I know we've talked about, that the one having to do with removal of 400 cubic yards of material, that we might want to change the bylaw, so we can advertise that to change the bylaw, and that's a whole nother way we go about things, and it has to go through town meeting. But in section 6, I just wanted to clarify that the activities that have an existing order of conditions or determination issued by the Conservation Commission under the Wetlands Protection Act or bylaw are exempt, but that's only the activities that are covered under the jurisdiction. It doesn't mean the whole project. It's just those areas that are under the jurisdiction, those areas that are in the buffer zone that are covered by the order of conditions. Just wanted to clarify that, because some people seem to be confused about that one. Page 12, 13.
And a comment, well, on page 12, you want
Right,
to go
starting
through
on
it
12,
first?
and then
or
it goes
not?
in 13. So that's C2, performance standards for the fast track permit. So the land disturbance permit, you have to file a land disturbance permit if you're altering over 40,000 square feet, and you have to come before a public hearing, you have to submit a plan, and you have to provide documentation. Under a fast track permit, it'd be administrative process, so I'll have an application, and then they'll just submit basic information and checklist that they're submitted it, and it's just an easier method for smaller projects. A lot of towns have done it this way, and it just cuts down on the paperwork and hoops and stuff. But one of the things I did add is for projects that, again, these are projects that are going for building permits, so there'll be additions or garages usually, or something like that, that are between 5,000, and I did correct to 39,999, that they shall retain on-site through a combination of infiltration, reuse, or evaporation to a maximum extent practical when determining whether the requirements have been met. 1 inch of runoff from post-construction impervious surfaces within that range should be infiltrated. And when determining whether the requirements have been met, the Stormwater Authority, which be the Conservation Commission or the Conservation Agent, shall consider all stormwater management practices available and capable of being implemented, and taking costs into consideration. Existing technology, proposed use, and logistics in light of overall projected purposes. Project purposes shall be defined generally, single-family homes or expanded or expansion of commercial development. Where it is not technically feasible to retain the 1 inch of runoff from all impervious areas, the applicant will describe in writing why it's technically infeasible to do so to physical site constraints and indicate the volume of runoff to be retained. Now, one reason why I included this is because it helps with the town's credits, points that they get under the water management plan that they have through DEP. So it's gonna cover and 5,000 square feet is still a relatively large area, so it's not gonna be a burden on the little teeny additions or little work that homeowners generally wanna do on their property.
I have a question. It's probably gonna
let's-
be, oh, sorry.
Before we,
Yeah.
why don't we take each one of these items and go through the board and then see if there's any comments anybody has, so we can get to them as we get them, get to each of the comments. So on page 10, anybody have anything? Okay, page 11, any comments? Everybody's okay? All right, on page 12, I have a couple. On page 12, number 1, the top of the page, fast track permit, A1. It says, any activity that will increase the impervious area of a parcel of land. Now, how does this relate to, on the previous page, B1? Normal maintenance and a replacement of existing driveways or patios are exempt. Do we need to clarify?
So you're at A1,
I'm on page 12, yeah, A1.
any activity
Activity
that
that
will
will-
increase the impervious area of a parcel or
Th-
land.
This is, you need a fast track permit, and on B, on page 11, B1 are exempt. Do we need to clarify that as, except as noted on B1?
Only to exempt.
Well, I guess it's any activity other than what's exempt. 'Cause this is actually language from the bylaw, so,
Oh, I'm just, yeah, it seemed to be in conflict, is my point.
because A1 is saying any
Any
activity, and then
activity,
there's
and this one
exemptions.
says you're exempt, so.
I guess we could stick in
Fast track permits
other
required
than
for.
what's exempt, or, except for
Well, you
exempt
could do it
activities.
under A, fast track permit shall be required for, except those exemptions in B1, in B. Would that cover that?
Yeah, or exempt activities.
Yeah.
Under,
I think, we need, I think, just to clarify that, you know. Further down, B3, on page, still on page 12, B3, say 4 copies of plan, 1 digital copy. Does that mean or digital copy or plus a digital copy?
it would be plus a digital copy.
Okay, so we only had the
Okay.
plus in
Sorry.
there?
So we could put 4.
Yeah, just 4 copies of the plan plus 1 digital copy. Okay? Anybody have anything else on page 12?
Yeah, I do. I was gonna say, this is probably a rhetorical question. Probably nothing will come of it. But down at the bottom of that page, where it's grayed out, I don't recall us ever taking into consideration costs in any rational way. Like, I've never seen anyone's spreadsheet, you know, here's one set of costs, here's another one. I wish we could just delete it. We never, ever do it. People just go, oh, yeah, it's too expensive. Oh, I can't do that. Yeah, it's not, in our budget. But can you remember ever seeing anyone give us any numbers for anything?
I think we have had.
Well, not in my time, not in the last 14 years, 12 years.
Well, I think,
Okay,
think we
what
have
would
had
even,
some,
what would it
but
even
not
look like?
usual.
It's like,
I think we did get some with some numbers attached. I don't remember what.
I guess you could say something like, well, I'm doing addition, and the addition's costing 5,000, but if you're asking me to put an infiltration unit, that's gonna cost, 5,000, so it's really not worth it for me to do the.
I'm not
do the
talking
addition.
about that. I'm not
That's-
talking about that. No, because then I'm like at one with the homeowner, right? The
Yeah.
homeowner is putting in a septic system. I could be that homeowner. No, I mean, a really big developer that says I absolutely have to have this much impervious surface so I can get to all 32 of my units.
Well, I
And
think that's the intent of doing this, the fast track permit is for smaller projects
This is-
because it's under 40,000 square feet.
All right. Okay.
So it would be
Yeah, no, I think that's reasonable, to leave it in there.
discretionary thing that
Okay,
if
all right.
they're only doing a relatively, but even it would be over 5,000 square feet if they were doing, but they'd have to show that it was a financial burden, that it wouldn't be worth them doing the project if they have to put in an expensive infiltration system. I think that's the intent anyways.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody have anything else on page 12? Anybody have anything on page 13? I got one that's not in there, on page 13, on D, on the page, applicant should consent to entry. Do we want to change that to shall?
This is more specific language that came from town council, so I think that you can't make them consent, so that's probably why it's not shall.
It's not mandatory that we have access? Okay. All right, so we'll leave it.
I think you
I mean, you
mentioned,
can say we can't review your permit if you don't let us go on, but we can't make them let us go on.
you've said that before, I think you can't, right?
I don't think you can.
Okay.
I mean, it's to their advantage if they want the permit.
Sure, yeah, right.
You could deny the permit, but I don't think you can force yourself on their property.
Okay. All righty. Anybody have anything else? Okay. Anybody in the audience have any questions or comments? Okay.
And
Someone,
represent all these developers and engineers.
Thanks, John.
it's on the record. Okay. So are we ready to conclude our hearing on this then?
That would be great, if you would close it and issue your,
Someone make a
blessing.
motion to close the hearing?
I'll move that.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. 600. Okay, and that we vote to approve the stormwater and erosion control bylaw as revised. Someone make that a motion?
I'll move that.
Do we have a
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 600. Okay, thank you.
okay, great, thanks.
Okay, here's that. Thank you. Where's the notice? We have a notice. You can find it.
What? Yeah, I don't see it in here. gonna.
Is it up on your screen?
There's no internet in this room.
Yeah, it's not, we don't have Wi-Fi today.
No, I'm connected to my phone, but it's not opening. We had it to start, and then it dropped.
Well, maybe the door's closed.
I don't know if you're gonna be able to read that.
Do you want me to just read it?
Go ahead. We have a
I'll give it a try.
substitute here.
Okay, Town of Walpole notice of intent, Conservation Commission public hearing in accordance with the Walpole Wetlands Protection Act and Walpole Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Notice is hereby given of the intent to Adele Mazouk, sorry, I apologize for, to construct an addition and a new deck onto the existing residential home located at 17-19 Hartshorn Road in Walpole, Mass. Plans for the notice of intent are on file with the Conservation Commission. Public hearing of the above matter will be held at the Walpole Town Hall, 135 School Street, on October 27th, beginning at 7:20. All interested parties requested to be present. Contact Conservation Commission for questions. John Wiley, Chairman, Walpole Conservation Commission.
Thank you. There's nothing to read in here, is there?
No.
Nothing? Okay. Representing the applicant,
I have to step,
okay.
I need to sit at the table, or?
Yeah, because you got the mic there.
Do you,
Just a minute, so we're just making a note that Al Getz is not participating in this public hearing.
Okay.
So, for the record, Mr. Chairman, my name is John Glosser. I'm not Glosser Engineering tonight, I'm John Glosser. I'm here actually substituting for Karen Skinner-Catroni, who did the notice of intent, flagged the wetlands at this location. And sitting to my right here is Adele Marzouk, who is the owner with his brother Imad. Imad. And do you have copies of the plan? You want to help me share my screen, Bailey?
I think we're good now, John, but
So anyway, as you can see on the plan, it's an existing duplex house at 1719 Hartshorn Road, obviously here in Walpole. And it's an area, as far as I know, of single and two-family houses. And to the left of this house, there are wetlands, bordering vegetated wetlands that are shown on the plan, flags 1 through 7. And across the street, there's also wetlands, bordering vegetated wetlands, and those are flags 1A through 11A. And you can see there's a lot, an area of 15,026 plus or minus square feet. Lot has approximately 120 feet of frontage on Hartshorn Road, and it's approximately 125 feet deep, rectangular in shape. And The house, the existing house is approximately in the center of the lot, and there's an existing shed in the back left corner. So what Adele and his brother want to do is add to the left side of the house, as we're looking at it from Hartshorn Road, an addition that's 18 feet wide and 24 feet 8 inches essentially deep, with a 10 by 18 uncovered deck behind that. So there's no change in the driveways, and it's just simply an addition to the house. The addition meets all of the zoning requirements. I believe you're in the general residence zone there. And so it meets all the zoning requirements, and we need a order of conditions from the Conservation Commission. So there is 25-foot no disturb buffer that comes onto this property. I know there'll be some discussion about providing plaques or possibly a fence. And the one thing I noticed, and I told Karen I would point this out, the proposed silt sock actually crosses in front of the driveway, which probably is not real. I mean, it could be that way, but then I'm kind of wondering how the workers are going to get their materials to the addition. So my recommendation, and I'm sure it would be yours also, would be to run that compost sock right out to the street and keep that compost sock just more or less parallel with the wetlands and parallel with the driveway there. Other than that, I think that it's probably fairly routine. If I was doing this plan and I didn't do it, I would add the note that should they encounter water, groundwater, when they're excavating the foundation and they need to dewater, they need to contact Landis, the Conservation Commission agent, prior to doing any dewatering and come up with a reasonable and approved by the conservation agent method of dewatering the property, because based on the proximity of the wetlands, it's a possibility that you are going to hit water, especially this year, in that foundation hole. So you can't just pump it out onto the street or into the wetlands. There has to be some method to make sure that the water is cleaned before it's discharged anywhere. Then they do have, plenty of methods to do that. So I think, Mr. Chairman, other than that, I'd be available, and Adele would be available to answer any questions that you or the board might have.
Okay, fine. Landis?
Yep, I agree with the erosion control should run along the edge of the existing driveway to the street. So the wetlands line is flagged on the plan, but on the other side, away from that existing house, along the bordering vegetated wetlands, is a stream where water flows and goes into a culvert and then goes under the roadway at Hartshorn. I know over the years, and I've been out there, there's been periodic flooding that occurs probably because of the culvert got stopped up with various items, and it needs to be cleared and feed by the DPW kind of regularly, I think. So I don't think that the stream necessarily has to be shown on the plan. I mean, it helps, but the BVW is the closest to the activity, and the buffer zone should run from the BVW, and no work should occur, obviously, within the resource area or the stream, which I think is also off property. And then the 25-foot no alteration area is already existing alteration. But I think that, like you had mentioned, I had sent Karen a email saying that, you should probably have some kind of demarcation along the edge of the property so that it's understood that there's no alteration beyond that point, either plaques or split rail fence or whatever the commission, if the commission feels that that would be appropriate, so that waterway does not get blocked with material, because it's important, because it does cause a flooding issue in the area. So I think that would be my recommendation, to have something there.
Okay, which
Whatever the
side is,
commission
which
feels.
side of the property is that stream on?
Yep.
On the north side?
Yeah, this is the wetlands area, and the stream runs along here, and then it goes into a head wall. I think there's a head wall there, and then it goes into a pipe, and it goes, discharges to the other side, which is town land.
Okay, anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Dean?
Do you have any water in your basement?
No.
Landis, what do we typically suggest for dewatering?
I agree with John. What I would prefer is we write in condition that it be provided to me prior to the work, so that, either using a silt sack or a dirt bag or a
For dewatering basins,
Dewatering
draw bells,
basin, yeah.
filter fabric, something like that? Okay. Any other comments?
Bailey?
No comments.
Video?
I would be in favor of split rail fence and plaques along that 25, the line. Would you do it the whole, Landis, would you do it all the way along the length of it, or what would be appropriate, do you think? Go close to the house, or how?
Or fence there?
There, right, so there is a fence already,
There is?
sort of,
There is?
that goes halfway
that.
down
The square down.
the lot line.
I think it's this guy.
Oh, that,
Yeah.
oh, that's a fence, I got you.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So maybe continuing along that line,
We'll continue down the driveway, yeah?
yeah,
Yeah.
to the street.
Okay. Even though, isn't that dotted line the 25? Am I,
Well, the 25 is already altered.
it's all, yeah, okay, I understand.
Smooth lawn.
Landscaping,
Yep, okay,
Not
all
sure,
right.
right? Is it just grass? Is it grass along there on the, yeah,
Yes.
I'm trying to remember.
So what
extend
they
that
wanna do
along
with
that
that
fence
was
line, yeah, okay.
Extend this down here,
Okay, that's it?
and then you're gonna put
I actually
plaques.
would like the intermittent stream shown, just because it is of pivotal importance
talking
to
about.
drainage of, this lot and other lots around it. And sometimes intermittent streams just get forgotten, and there's sort of an awareness thing with a plan like this. You look at it and you go, oh yeah, there's an intermittent stream there, and sometimes it doesn't drain properly. So I would like that put on. And is this addition going to have a, are you excavating for a basement underneath it?
Yes, I was.
So my experience with digging holes in a yard, or having it done for me, yes, is it takes up a huge amount of space. And I guess maybe the erosion controls need to be pushed back. I don't know, I'm just sort of envisioning giant mounds of, because ultimately you're trying to protect these wetlands and you're trying to protect the intermittent stream. So, what are they, like 9 feet from the house, 9 feet from the addition?
Well, I think a better solution, Betsy, is would have a condition that they're only going to leave on the site the amount they need to backfill around the foundation, which is going to be quite a bit less than what they're going to actually excavate. So they should excavate and put that right into a dump truck. So if you have like a Kenny Jones kind of guy, he can look at that site and know exactly how many dump truck fulls he has to take out and how many little piles he has to leave. So in my experience, other than the fact that we already talked about it, is that the things cross in the driveway, which can't happen, but I think it's far enough away from the foundation to, as long as they're gonna do that. And I think Adele is gonna make sure they're gonna do that, because he heard what you said and what I just said, so.
Is that all right?
Yep.
Okay. What is that fence material now?
Wood,
It's a split rail or wood,
wood,
In the backyard, wood.
your backyard? It's a wood fence?
yeah, wood fence.
I would rather see the concrete bounds with the plaques on it, because the wood fences, split rail or whatever, have a limited life.
Well, could you do both?
Yeah, so why don't you, Adele's already agreed to, I talked to him, to extend the fence, and then we can put 2, 3, 4 plaques right under the fence, or right in front of the fence, so when the fence falls over, the plaques are still there.
So it's on something permanent, concrete bound?
Yeah, the usual
Yeah,
Put them on I think it's a 3-foot concrete bound that we put 2 feet in the ground and 1 foot sticking up.
Yeah, that's what I did for all the rest of them.
yeah. And I would think, you can leave the fence where it is or move it to your property line?
I would say just leave it where it is and
Okay,
extend it.
Yeah, I'm
so
just
then
gonna
put
get it
the
extended, yeah.
plaques right on the property side, inside the house side of the fence? Okay.
And so just how many do you want to draw on there, and how many you want and where you want them?
I would say 3 of them, work, one at the easterly property line, one in the middle, and one
Okay.
near the street. So you need, I assume that stream keeps on coming down here, right?
Yeah.
So we'd want a plaque on the street, Hartshorn Road.
Yeah, it goes into it goes into the culvert.
We got 125, yeah, three plaques would do it.
Okay. Can you
Okay.
see that?
In the
Something
stream.
like that? Can you see that?
Yeah, it's roughly on each end of that property
And
line
then
and
one in the middle, which is kind of across from where the addition's going to
It's
be.
a straight line, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments, please identify yourself for the record. Hearing none, someone make a motion to close the hearing.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500, 500, yeah. 5,
Zero, right.
yeah. And this is, so issue the order with the conditions as noted, one for the dewatering and the plaques and the erosion controls. Do we need to revise the erosion control location?
Well, since he's had, whoever that, like,
Yeah.
whoever did the plan, you'll contact them and let them know.
Yeah, Karen, I already talked to Karen about
Karen,
it, so she'll
okay.
contact them and
Right,
they'll.
since they already have to make revisions, yeah, I would just change
Yeah.
where that erosion control goes. You can put a note on the plan about providing the commission with a dewatering plan prior to construction. And it can be when applying for the building permit,
And the,
excavates truck.
yeah, excavation, other than that required for backfill to be removed from the site when it is excavated?
And then three
And
plaques.
3 plaques on a concrete bound.
Right.
So if I can, Mr. Chairman, so I had 5 things, right? Revise the erosion control, note for dewatering, plaques, 3 plaques, put a note on for the excavation that only the material needed
Yeah.
to backfill is going to stay, and then extend the fence from its
Yeah.
terminus here down to the street.
Yeah.
So those are the 5
Okay.
things.
Also, since you have a driveway, so there's no point, you won't have an entrance there. Normally we'd have a gravel entrance to take, so if there's any material from the trucks that come off on the street, that it needs to be cleaned. The street needs to be cleaned.
Okay, I can
Street
add
cleaning.
that as a note too, about street sweeping and driveway sweeping as, you
If,
know.
as necessary.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Someone make that a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good luck.
You have a plan in here?
What are you looking for?
You have a plan in here. You don't need more?
Well, they were handed out.
Okay.
That we pulled from the file.
Is that stormwater, or is that
Okay, now, does Al,
They seem huge for sewer.
I know, me
no, I think we're
Yeah.
taking an hour break. Yeah, you're next, yes. Does Al sign?
No, no, because it's 500, that
Yeah.
doesn't exist.
So we'll just leave his name on here,
Yeah,
but no
just leave- yeah.
signature.
No
Okay.
signature.
Okay.
Oops. Okay, just-
I was going to comment on town council's memo to begin with. Can we open this?
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yep.
I'm gonna find it now, when they tell us.
But you were gonna come on it before you open it?
No,
No, oh, first thing.
first thing, yeah.
I have it in here, so. You need.
Not in here.
It's in the notice of intent for those. Dean.
2 pages? Oh, yeah.
My phone's not working here.
You what?
My phone's no longer working here.
Just wing it.
You can have them waive it.
You can have them waive it.
Let's see, what do we got here?
We don't have an ad for it.
This is a hearing for
Land disturbance permit.
land disturbance permit? Is that what we're,
Continue public hearing for the land disturbance permit.
this is notice of, the notice of
This-
intent we
Right.
voted on.
This is just the land
right.
disturbance permit.
This is a hearing for land disturbance permit, 533 Lincoln Road, lots 3 and 4. We don't have,
Under the stormwater
Mhm.
erosion control bylaw
this is under,
regulations,
okay.
being held at Walpole Town Hall, 135 School Street, Walpole, Mass. Plans are on record at the Conservation Commission office, and all abutters, interested parties wishing to attend should be present. Conservation Commission Chairman Jack Wiley.
Thank you.
Well done.
Heard a million times.
Good job, Jack.
I'll leave my comments to myself. Okay, representing the applicant, but
Oh.
before you start, we had a couple of questions that came up at the last hearing. One was regarding a gravel operation, and was this how should this be handled? Basically, we got a response from town council, and town council has indicated that you got 2 situations. One is earth removal, and one is excavation or filling. Earth removal would be for like a quarry or sand or gravel pit, whereas excavation or filling would be that which goes on in order to arrive at the necessary topography to cover the initial or the main purpose of the subdivision or of the project, in which in this case is a subdivision. So housing is the main object of this filing, so that that issue is resolved from that standpoint. The other issue was the deed restriction that was put into the deed in 1956, I believe it was, in the 50s. 1956. And the opinion from town council is that the prohibition of a deed restriction of operating a commercial gravel operation on property expired as a matter of law 30 years after the creation of the deed restriction, pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 184, Section 23. Assuming for the sake of argument that the deed restriction was still valid, it's the town council's opinion that equitable or legal relief for a violation of the deed restriction would lie between the successors in title of the grantor and the grantee of the 1956 deed containing the restriction, and not to the town. So based on that, I think we got a response to those two questions, so
Copy of that?
proceeding with that in mind, representing the applicant.
Rob Truax of GLM Engineering Consultants, and with me is attorney Brian Almeida and John Walsh, the applicant for the project. Mr. Chairman, can we get a copy of that from town council for our records, please? If you have an extra
that.
one.
Pardon?
You would have an extra one, or you could send it to us if you have one, Landis, that would be great.
You read from your copy, right?
Yes. We'll forward it to you, unless you want, is that,
I
you got anything
figured
else
it's
on
going
there?
out.
Okay, thank you.
I can forward you it as well.
Okay.
Okay, so since our last meeting, we also submitted some new documents to the board. We gave you the copies of the beta group reviews that were done for the planning board. There were 2 reviews done. I gave you the sequence. They did a review, we made a response, they did a second review. Then that was reviewed again by town engineer. We gave you the copy of the gravel removal plan that we submitted to the planning board, so you could see the hours of operation, truck routes, et cetera, and how things were gonna be staged throughout the site. I also, at your request, gave you a phasing plan that was in that revised plan set. I gave you a revised subdivision plans that showed both the grading that the planning board would be reviewing under the subdivision control law and what the overall site grading would be that this board is approving for the erosion control. So I just want to show you the phasing real quick. I did provide that to you. Yeah, without questions, that we're going to clear cut the whole site at once. So it's just basically broken into 3 phases. Phase 1 would be approximately 8.3 acres, which is lots 1 through 5, and then 20 through 23 coming down the other side of the road. Phase 2 would be approximately 10.5 acres, which is the backside here, which we would be really developing lot 6, 7, 13, and creating the buffer local sportsman's club. And then the last phase would be as we promote the Deerfield Lane. That would be the last phase of clearing and cutting, which is about 5.2 acres. Each phase was kind of set up for a couple purposes. Like this phase here in phase 1, all this area is draining towards the drainage basins that are out front. So the runoff from the roadway, once it's constructed, will be going into the
What page you on?
last one.
Thank you.
Very last one. I hid it in the back, so you can see it. There you go.
Thank you.
So when they build this phase, they'll come in, the idea is, we'll shape the lots, we'll build the drainage system, we'll put the utilities in the road, the water, the electric, et cetera. We'll get the binder course down. The lots that don't get developed immediately for houses, then what they will do is they will put loom down and put seeding and stabilize the lots after they're cleared and shaped to meet the grading on the plan. So these lots won't be left exposed. If they're not built houses with finished landscaping, then the lots will be put down with some temporary loom, probably 4 inches, 6 inches, hydro-seeded, let the grass grow. And then they'll move into phase 2. Phase 2 includes building the earth berm, which is along the boundary, and then this portion of the cul-de-sac, and then the long length of road here. And again, this drainage system is going into this detention basin down the back, so that's part of phase 2. And these lots, again, I don't anticipate that every single house would be built in each phase as they go through. And what's not built, as the area is disturbed and graded to the shaped up to the lots, they will loom and seed them and leave them in some state so they're not going to erode. Then the last phase would be to build a road that comes out to Deerfield Drive right down next to the roadway there, so it's just kind of the way we set up the staging and the phasing for the project.
Okay, before you move on, can I just ask him, because I had some questions about the phasing.
Sure.
So when you're doing each phase, so phase one, you'll have a staging area, and you'll have a temporary, construction stormwater, and you'll have a, post-construction stormwater basin.
Correct.
So you'll do, because I don't think you include that in the phasing plan, those aspects of
I
each phase.
didn't list them out specifically, probably, in that portion
Yeah.
there.
So that, I was curious of, so you're doing all those components in
Right, so
phase
this is,
one?
yeah, so there's some temporary basins that are being built, and that'll be during phase one. And then they'll get the road in, they'll build the final basins. There's a basin over here that's off the, it's down in this corner. There's two basins in the front, so they'll build those, they'll put the binder course down. This will remain to be the staging area for phase 2 and 3. We're gonna use this area for parking equipment, et cetera. So they'll be using this road to go in and do phase 2, and they'll be using this road to go in and do phase 3.
So that'll be the staging area for all three phases?
Correct.
So
So
there
we'll
won't be
utilize
any
lot 1 and lot 2 for the staging. That's where we're parking the equipment.
Okay, and so you'll clear grade utilities phase one and do temporary or permanent stabilization, and then you move on to phase 2?
Correct.
And then the same, and move on to phase 3?
Correct. Phase 3 with that. So we won't clear, and that's the limits of clearing in each phase.
So I think somewhere in your information also, it said that Deerfield would not be used for construction access, but it could be used for some residential use,
Correct.
but it's not being built till phase 3.
Not being built till phase 3. So the phasing, originally when we were gonna clear cut the whole site, we were gonna work at the opposite. We were gonna start in the back and work our way out. But the way the planning board's approving it and the way, we're gonna do the clearing, because we don't wanna clear the whole site anymore, you folks don't seem comfortable with that, so we've discussed it. So we're gonna do it in 3 phases, coming from the front and working our way out to the back. So when they do finish phase 3, there's very high likelihood that, all the houses won't be built. So they'll have the roadway bindered and the place will be built. And they'll still be building houses. So there'll be some construction going on. They'll have, concrete trucks, lumber trucks, et cetera, coming to the site. Those trucks will not be allowed to use Deerfield for access to the site at any time during the project being built. So once phase 3 is complete and the road's connected, it doesn't give the contractors and all them the right to come in off of Deerfield. We've agreed to this. We're gonna put signage up that says that no construction vehicles to exit or come in that way. I mean, that's all part of what we've said to the planning board as well. And we're staying with that during the whole process of the site. So, but once houses are occupied, like if someone buys a house and they're in the back or whatever, they can come in from Deerfield to access the houses. So that's what's meant by that. So there will be some houses built in each phase as you're going through. They may, you might not build all, whatever it is, 8 or 9 in phase 1. You may be into phase 2 and you only have a couple built, but you'll have it stabilized, and then you probably be into phase 3. You may not have but 4 or 5 built. Knowing the history of the Walsh brothers, they've been in town for a long time. When they did Wisteria, they had over 100 house lots, and they're still building houses, and that goes back to 1995. So we're talking 25 years, and they had 120 house lots, and they've still got 3 or 4 house lots left. So they don't build, they're not Toll Brothers. They're not gonna come in here and put up 20 houses a year. They're gonna do 3 or 4 maybe max a year. That's been their history, that's what they do. They're house builders. They don't try and build it all out quickly. They wanna take, run it through, take their time, and they're not looking to build 20 houses in a year. So I think, their history speaks for itself in town and their other projects, so.
I would just also include the erosion control phase by phase, right? Sometimes They like to go and put all the erosion control out, cut down all the trees, and then 3-4 years later, the erosion control breaks down, so you
Well, the
just
thing
put it
is,
out
too-
phase by phase.
Well, you wouldn't put erosion control up along here, because that's just gonna get cut down. It's gonna have to flow up to erode off the site. So, you know, when you come into this site up in here, you're basically cutting out a bowl. These are all slopes going up. You know, and along here as well. You know, this is all, you know, you're coming across, then going up and then back down off the property. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. We're gonna put erosion control along the access drive to the Walpole Sportsman's Club. And then we wouldn't go across here. I mean, we'll stake the limit of work, and this is where they'll clear, but I wouldn't put an erosion control up there because as they come in here, they're cutting that out. That's gonna just all come towards them. The erosion's gonna come this way, if there is any.
Yeah, that's not what I was saying. I was saying,
Okay.
don't put it where you're not even gonna get to in 3 years. because
No, we wouldn't
it's
wrap the whole
woods
site.
And the deer put holes in it. and
Correct.
it's-
No, we would not do like along the riverfront until we get down in phase 2. We wouldn't do that end of the site. Although when we do phase 2, we'd probably bring the erosion up along the stone wall at Deerfield where that is, just because it's down that end of the site, and if anything was to get through the woods.
Sorry, didn't mean to go out of turn, but
Commissioner,
Anything else?
I got some
Yeah,
questions.
go ahead.
Is
No,
that okay?
I'm all set.
We'll go. You
Yep,
done?
we'll answer any questions,
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, Lynn, did you have anything else, Landis? Right now?
No, I just, I thought you were gonna go through all the information that you submitted, and so I just wanted to get questions on the phasing plan
I got questions.
while it's
Yeah.
still there, so.
Okay. Then while I've been doing this, we can answer any questions on that before we go to whatever else. Dean?
So the phasing and the construction is essentially continuous. So you're going to phase 1, and then once your loam's down, seed's down, you're gonna move right to phase 2. There's no other condition,
Correct.
okay? Why do you need to clear the lots before people buy them and build on them?
We need to shape them and bring the grades down so I can perk them. These are all septic systems, so I can't do a test pit on the top of the hill where I got a 30-foot cut because I can't get down deep enough.
Okay.
So we're gonna shape the lots, prep them, then we can do our test pits for Board of Health, we can design our septic systems, and we can put the houses in place, and then they're ready to go. They're like pad ready.
So there's no other qualifier to move on to phase 2, other than,
We'll get the road bindered, we'll get the binder down, so we'll get, the drainage system will be operable, and then we'll move on to phase 2. There may be a few houses in by then. There may be a couple houses up, there may not be. There may be 1 or 2, there may be 3 or 4.
what's the timing on phase 1, you think? No, just like how long will it take?
A year, year and a
I
half?
think it'll take at least a year, 1 to 2 years.
Okay. So
As Bob says, we don't go in and hit it hard, that's
No.
not our goal. Live in the town, work in the town, and spent my life building homes in the town.
that means phase 2 will be similar.
Correct.
Okay. And phase
Yeah, they'll probably take, I would say at least 1 year per phase at minimum. Maybe a little longer. So it could be 3 years before you get to phase 3.
So there's a good chance the lots will be stabilized, grass grown,
Correct.
before we move on.
Anything else, Dean?
No, thank you.
Can I have a question about protocol, though? So are we going around asking questions and commenting, and then going back to more presentation?
I
And
think
if
that
so,
was-
can I get a foreshadow of what the next presentation is?
Let's
So
get
that
through
I'm
this.
in sync with what we're,
Let's go through this phasing. I don't know if anybody
so
has
really
we're
any
only
didn't-
questions.
commenting on
Right
phasing
now.
right now.
Right now, just
So you
what's
can
been
comment on
presented.
anything you want. I really wasn't presenting much more, to be honest.
Well, what else were you gonna present?
Well, let's move on with this. Bailey, anything?
Yeah, quick question. The gravel removal operation plan notes about 1.8 years. You said that's like per phase?
No, that's
Different.
a planning board gravel removal operation. So that would be to take out the 410 cubic yards that are associated with, it's just if we just did the road.
Thank you, that's it.
So we're kind of, the planning board's only approving a certain portion of the project. They're not approving the lot grading. That's not they've separated that. That's why if you look through your plans, those last 4 sheets in your set, or the last 3 prior to that phasing one, that shows the entire grading for the site. That shows you all the lots being graded, the berm being built. But if you go further into the set and look at the grading and drainage plans that are further up in the set, those do not show the grading other than what's required to put the road in.
Anything else?
Okay.
Media?
I don't have any specific questions about the phases, but I think you've described it pretty accurately, pretty thoroughly. Thank you.
Betsy?
Well, all right, I have 3-part questions and comments here that I guess I'll just go with, not
Sure.
entirely sure what. So, the first one was one that I really worked on thinking about how to word this. A couple weeks ago when we met, we asked about how you could minimize the total area of disturbance, because that's in the stormwater bylaw, that's in our bylaws, that if you've got a situation like this, there should be some way of minimizing the disturbance. And I think a reply was that, at least in part, planning board required you to disturb as much land as you're disturbing for the roads.
That's not correct.
Oh, okay, all right, so then how did you phrase it?
Planning board is not requiring me to do anything. We're designing this based on the town's subdivision rules and regulations.
Oh, okay.
So we
Yeah.
comply with the subdivision rules and regulations. That's what we're complying with.
Okay, but are the subdivision rules and regulations under the purview of planning?
Correct.
All right, so that's where I'm getting my phrasing wrong, okay. And this is where it becomes frustrating to be a citizen on a board like this, and that's all I am. I could be on the other side of the table easily. I'm nobody, I'm just sitting on the commission. I feel like I want more coordination between boards and commissions on a big project, and I feel this way about all big projects, not just this one. So I would like to know from planning board, via you, I think, via a query from you that you report back to us, whether this is proceeding along with what, in their opinion, would be the minimal disturbance. In other words, why not a road that does switchbacks up the hill, right? That's been done before, rather than a deep, deep, deep cut road that keeps cutting deeper and deeper and goes around. I guess I'd like to hear that planning board thinks this is a minimal disturbance. I don't know if it's a satisfying answer. It's not a satisfying answer to me, especially since I've been to a couple planning board meetings, that you're abiding by our bylaws. I guess I'd like to hear from the board for whom those bylaws are jurisdictional. So I'm requesting that we get a comment from planning via you that this is their concept of how to
It's not
build
their concept, it's our concept. We design the roads, we design the project, they have to review it, and if it meets the planning board rules and regulations, and there's no waivers, which there isn't, then they have to review it under their regulations and whether they approve or deny. But if we meet the requirements, technically they're supposed to approve. So this is designed per the subdivision rules and regulations. We've met some of the maximum requirements of slopes. We've, meet all those turning radiuses, curvatures of roads. I mean, to be honest with you, Betsy, I could not bring this road up that hill without taking this hill down. It's just not possible to come off of the end of one road to the other. If I wanted to build 3 lots, yeah, maybe I could. I could put houses up there, 3 of them. But that's not the goal of the developer. I mean, it's like anybody who owns a piece of land, they want to develop it to the maximum potential under the guidelines of the town. So that's
All right, then,
really where it's at. I mean, the planning board's gonna rule on this at some point. We have a meeting next week. They may rule on it next week, they may continue it again. I'm not sure where they stand. But they're gonna make a decision based on, what they feel is right, according to their regulations.
All right. so I'm only on point one, by the way, sorry.
That's okay.
It's just, I'm just gonna say, it's disappointing to me to see how sometimes our bylaws are not in sync with each other. I mean, ours clearly says with a minimum amount of disturbance. I guess another bylaw says that road needs to cut right into the gravel as deep as it can. So I guess I'm just saying it's, so be it, I guess, huh? Okay, so second point, we got comments from the town attorney, partly at my request, and I came away from that thinking, if I take a quote from this, which I put somewhere, here. And I know you haven't read this yet, and I'm not gonna read a whole bunch of stuff out loud here, but the town attorney points out correctly that in our purview, which is stormwater management, our bylaws don't actually have a definition of a commercial gravel operation. The attorney says, however, the zoning bylaws contain distinctions, which I guess are vague enough that you have to go before zoning to get stuff sorted out. I guess that's the nature of why you have to go before a board. I would like to request that we at least pose the question to zoning, ZBA. They can say, no, we're not doing it, but just pose the question, do you think this is in your purview? Would you please take a look at it? You can come back and say, nope, not in the purview, not gonna waste our time on it. But it just seems like if there's one board in town that might have this in their purview, the it being is the amount of earth removal commensurate with a commercial gravel operation. It might be zoning board of appeals, because this is a residential neighborhood, and as soon as you get into a commercial gravel operation, you're into a commercial thing that doesn't belong in a residential. If it's just setting up 24 houses in a residential neighborhood, no comments, right? But I would like us, as a commission, to ask ZBA whether they think this is within their purview. And if they say no, I'll accept that.
Wasn't that question answered in the?
Well,
The
no.
question, are you
Question was
disagreeing with the town attorney's
Yeah.
comment?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with the town attorney's comment that the ZBA, we haven't asked the ZBA.
If you read his comment, the underlying principal use is a residential subdivision. Accordingly, the earth removal activities proposed by the applicant limited to the amount needed to construct and propose subdivision. Such activities could reasonably be considered excavation activities incidental to the proposed primary use of the property. I don't see that
Okay.
there's any point in pursuing that any further. We've got an answer from town council.
Well, actually, Jack, I'm gonna disagree with you on that, I'm sorry.
I agree with Jack on that.
Okay, you can agree with Jack on that one.
Let's just,
No, I'm
we'll
gonna
we'll
explain
review
further
this
why I
later.
disagree with you.
Do you have another question?
No, I'm gonna further explain why I'm disagreeing with you. I think the town attorney gave us,
We'll discuss this later. Let's move on with the hearing. We'll bring it up later and discuss whether we want to set an amendment.
later at this hearing.
Yeah, later tonight.
All right,
Okay.
you might not like my third comment either.
Go
So the
ahead.
third one, and this took me a while to grasp, because my only contact with the building inspector is getting a garage built and a kitchen remodeled, so that's what I think building inspectors do. But the only other person in town hall, or department in town hall, that might possibly have any kind of purview here, surprise, is the building inspector. I would not think that person would have purview over a commercial gravel operation, but, so, again, Jack, what I don't wanna have happen is the buck just coming to a complete stop here with this commission without us doing our due diligence to make sure that 10 years from now, we weren't solely responsible for doing what turned out to be a commercial gravel operation in a residential neighborhood. I just want to make sure we're doing our diligence and that we're consulting
We
the
can-
two other boards or departments that could
Yeah,
possibly.
we can hash that out
All right,
later. Let's move
okay.
on with the hearing. Al,
All
do you
right,
have
because I
anything?
was going to, my final,
Oh, I thought
No.
that was your third point.
that was actually part 2B.
Okay.
3B.
3 is brief. 3 is brief. This is a very strange property. There's a sportsman's club behind it. And I know that's not our purview. I could care less if there's a sportsman's club. However, we have another example in town right now of a great big removal and stormwater operation that currently is not resulting in any houses being built. And I'm just wondering, I don't want to be insulting to anyone from the Sportsman's Club, but who's gonna buy these houses right up next to?
It's not our purview.
No, I
That's-
know it's not our purview, but.
I don't think
but-
it's not pertinent to the discussion. This is not, has no issue on conservation. If they build a house and nobody buys it, that's not our problem, it's their problem. So I don't think it's pertinent to this
All right, then back to my
discussion.
first, the second 2 points, my points 2A and B. I do want to discuss
Yeah,
those.
okay, when we're done with this. Here, we'll review your request, and see what we want to do. Okay. Al, any comments?
On the shaded green and yellow areas, over to the left, you have, within the lot, a section of land that hasn't been shaded green or yellow, and I assume that's along a brook. Is that Stop River?
Yes.
Okay. And I don't see anything on here that tells the tree cutters and the excavators to stop when they get to a certain point. What are you gonna put along this line where you're not shading it green and yellow? What are you gonna put along there to keep people from taking more gravel?
So on the erosion plan, there's erosion control barrier with a orange construction fence on the limit of work.
Okay,
And then-
and that's gonna be installed before you
Correct.
begin any work on those two phases?
Correct.
Okay. And similar, on the lower part of Phase 3, there's an area that isn't-
Same thing.
Same thing, okay.
And so those controls will be in effect before the clearing.
See, I don't see that on this plan.
No,
so-
this is just,
so
a
I'm
this is
wondering
just a
what-
general phasing, so
Yeah,
what
okay.
areas, it's really, that's not the erosion. There is plans in there that show where the erosion barriers are
Okay,
and all that. So, yeah, it pretty much contains the entire site for this clearing.
okay, that's fine.
I added some along the Sportsman's Club where you had requested last time we were here, all
I
along
can,
that
I can
side.
see in past sportsmen's clubs up on the other side of town, we have people always complaining about the shooting noise and that it's bothering them. So I hope that when you build this berm, you're not only building it to prevent stray bullets from entering these houses along there, but you're doing something to cut down the noise so that those people don't try to shut the sportsmen's down
Correct.
like other places have done. You know, so I think that has to be considered when you're doing that berm. And I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you cut down the noise, but it's gonna have to be something.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the purpose of the berm is for sight and sound. We're not concerned about stray bullets. The sportsmen's, their skeet and their trap fields go in the other direction. Their pistol and rifle ranges go in the other direction. We've been working with the club to try and prevent them from being able to see us and us from being able to see them. And we also think the berm will help a lot with sound because the houses are gonna be down low.
Okay.
And that's the real reason. We're not,
And it's
we're
not our
not worried
purview.
about stray bullets, we're not,
And the sound is not our purview.
Well,
As we-
that's one
as has
of
been
the,
noted.
there's
Yeah.
people that think the environmental organization should be dealing with noise pollution and air pollution as well, okay? And maybe we should, but that's not the way the law is written at this time.
if I could follow up again, Mr. Chairman. As a point of information, there's a state statute that protects the gun club from attacks about noise.
I know that.
So they actually have a lot of protection. People could not move in and just turn on them and say, it's too noisy, we want to close you down. Under state statute, they're protected.
Okay. While we're on this subject, since if anyone in the audience has any questions or comments on this particular subject, the phasing issue, please identify yourself for the record. Okay. Did you have anything else
I
that
really
you
don't.
wanted to present, Rob?
We really don't at this point.
Okay.
We just open it up for
All
questions.
right, Landis, you had some other additional comments.
Well, so the letter that you submitted in regards to land disturbance questions, you don't want to go over those?
Where I just went through the regulations and hit each item.
Well, so,
If you have questions on it,
I do, I have questions. So part 2, number 1, total area of disturbance shall be minimized, so we talked a little bit about that already, is the applicant explains that the total disturbance is 24 acres, and that they are meeting the planning board's rules and regulations governing subdivision of land, however, these are not the planning board's subdivision regulations. This is the land disturbance. One of the standards is to minimize disturbance. So the answer that you're meeting another board's requirements doesn't really answer the question.
Well, we have to work within all the town's bylaws, but it's not just one bylaw. There's several things going on here. We are creating a subdivision, so in order to build on a 1 acre lot, 40,000 square foot lot with a house and a septic, you have to disturb a certain amount of land. You're also gonna build a roadway with a 50-foot layout, you're gonna disturb a certain amount of land. So, yes, we're building 24 houses, it's a subdivision, and we think we've minimized. We put berms on the lots around the buffers, we've buffered the resource area with no work
So
within
there's
200
no other
foot.
way to minimize the disturbance, so at some places you're taking 30 feet of material out.
That's correct.
So you've looked at this plan and there, you see no way of redesigning it slightly so you can put your road in and your houses and not take 30 feet of material.
So I've already maximized the slope of the road coming up the hill.
Okay.
So I can't bring it
You
up
can't
any
put
higher.
driveways,
I mean, at that point, the lots
Oh,
have to have
up to where
septic
the houses
systems.
are?
So I'm still, it's not gonna make any difference on that plan if I raise the lot 4 feet with a 4-foot slope in the driveway. I'm still gonna cut out, instead of 40 feet, I'm gonna cut out 36. At the end of the
well,
day,
all
I
need
don't
to
think
do is
that minimizes disturbance.
You need to make
You're-
it
When you say
clear.
disturbance, you're talking about surface area in total. So you're talking about the surface area. It's not so much the cut, it's the surface area we're talking about when you say disturbance. Doesn't matter if I'm cutting a foot or 30 feet, it's still disturbance, correct?
It's disturbance, yeah.
Correct. So the cut is not the issue, it's the area that I'm disturbing.
No,
So I
right.
would be disturbing that much area if the site was flat and I was building 24 homes. The only difference is I'm taking it down 30 or 40 feet.
Well, I think
Still
this-
disturbing the same amount of area for 24 homes that I would have to disturb whether the site was flat or the site's a hill.
If the site was flat and you were putting in the road, then we would say minimize the lot clearing. Don't take down every tree and every piece of vegetation and flatten out the complete lot to put a house on it. We would want you to work with minimizing the disturbance and keeping some of the natural topography.
But on a 40,000
That's
square
right.
foot lot,
So if you could just clearly, either in writing or because,
well, I did that in writing, that's our opinion.
Well, I don't
You disagree.
I disagree. So let's move on.
If I could just try to bridge the gap
That
there.
clearly states compliance with our bylaw.
Well, if I could just note first, what that's referring to is the regulation, not the bylaw. And there is a distinction there, but,
I'm sorry, yes.
and that's an important distinction, but notwithstanding that, I think the key here is that to connect the two, under the subdivision control law, we're already agreeing to remove only that gravel which is necessary to prepare the site.
For the road.
Correct.
You're, right, you're not even addressing the lots, though.
Well, that's not in the planning board's purview, and
But it is in this board's purview. That's part of the disconnect.
Well, again, I think we're agreeing here to only do what is necessary to prepare the lots.
Correct.
That's it. And how else can one minimize it other than doing only that which is necessary?
You tell the board.
Well,
That's not for me to answer, that's for you to answer.
well, I suppose, but from a theoretical perspective, if you're doing the minimum necessary, you're minimizing
If you
disturbance.
looked at it, if you haven't looked at it, if you looked at it thoroughly and there's no way to minimize, then, okay. Anyways, I don't want to really debate this. My notes are more to the commission than to the applicant, but also to hopefully get some answers. The construction phasing schedule, so we talked a little bit about that. I thought that just information about the stormwater, the temporary stormwater management and the permanent stormwater management should be included in the phasing, so it's clear. It would have been really nice if the grading and utility sheets matched the phasing also. They don't, so it's clear where you're working.
Well, there's grading on there.
There is, but
What do you
the
mean?
the sheets don't match your phasing plan. So you have sheets where there's
Well, I don't
how to
add
build the
it. Well,
road, how to grade
I'm
out
not
the
gonna add-
site,
yeah,
where
I'm
does
not
the
gonna do
stormwater go, and you have to, okay, sheet 4, phase 1, sheet 6,
Oh.
and you have to go like all over the place looking for the phases, so it doesn't really coincide with the phases.
Yeah, I mean, we gave you this plan as a separate sheet, so you could see all the phases and all the site in the whole, so, I mean, the sheets are all broken up, that's just the way it is.
Isn't that what the contractor uses when they're
They're gonna use the
constructing the
whole set
site?
of plans, absolutely. Well, they're gonna have access to this.
That's just an observation as well. Number 8, and I'm going off of your numbering on your letter, so 8, all erosion and sedimentation controls shall be installed and maintained in accordance with the town specification and good engineering practices. You generally don't use hay bales in your specs for, have hay bales, I think, in your check dams.
Where are you reading?
I'm reading in your letter.
Oh, number 8.
Number 8.
So all the roads shall be installed and maintained per the design plan.
So your design plan calls out for hay bales? And we
Yeah.
generally don't use hay bales?
We have socks. We only have hay bales for check dams.
Okay.
You don't want those?
The commission generally doesn't like to use hay bales anymore because they leave invasive
We're
stuff.
not using them on the perimeter, we're just using them for like where we have a swale.
Okay,
If
that's
you
a
control
comment, they
runoff.
can decide if they,
They're
what
just check
they think.
dams.
I just pulled that out because
Right.
in most of their decisions for land disturbance permit and order of conditions, we don't use hay bales anymore.
Okay, if you don't wanna use hay bales for check dams, we can substitute it for a silt sock.
And so for the on-site, that number, your number 14th, on-site construction and waste materials shall be handled, oh, I'm sorry, go to 13. So interim and permanent stabilization measures, I think your line is that you comply. So temporary and permanent stabilization notes, you reference 30 days, while our bylaw says 14 days.
Okay.
So that should be corrected. Number 14, on-site construction and waste materials shall be handled properly. I think you say they are gonna be handled properly. So for each phase, you'll have an area where, a staging, concrete, paint, fueling, or that's gonna always occur up front in phase 1.
All the equipment will be staged up front, phase one.
So when they're constructing the houses, when they're painting the
different.
houses and doing concrete work, and where are they going to be doing the washout for concrete and paint, which
They'll
usually
work
just
on,
occurs
when
wherever?
they're working on the individual lot, they'll have, the trucks will be on the lot. So they'll do the washout right there,
On the lot.
on the lot.
So each lot should have a designated area.
Well, we can do that.
Yeah?
Okay.
Because otherwise
That's
it
what the
just goes
commission-
everywhere, so.
Either on each lot, or else you'll have a designated area.
We don't
for-
have
for-
final house designs or septic designs, so it's hard to say where that's gonna be right now, until we have a final site plan
I'm
for each
talking about
lot.
your truck washouts, your concrete truck washouts. That ought to be in a central area, not all over the place.
So there is a concrete washout requirement within the SWIP that shows how it's done.
Right, so we understand the SWIP, and this bylaw mirrors some of that, but it brings it down to the local level, so SWIPs mirror, they're this big, they come in late. Here's your SWIP, okay, how do I find anything that pertains
I
to the
think
site particularly? It's very difficult. So there are items in our stormwater management and erosion control bylaw and regulations that we would like upfront,
So
and
you
not
wanna see
hidden in
the
a
concrete
SWIP.
washout on every lot.
SWIP.
You wanna see it now on the plan on every lot?
No, I just said it should be concentrated.
It most likely will not be concentrated to one spot. I mean,
We don't want 24 of them all over the place.
well, they're gonna be working on each individual lot at one at a time. So one lot these lots may be all finished by the time they get to the last one. So they're not gonna have a concrete washout left. I mean,
You don't want it all over the place. So you
it's
come
common
up with,
practice
but you're
that they
doing a
usually
phase.
work on the lot.
You're doing a phase, so you put one in each phase.
Put a
That makes sense.
condition that we put one on each phase.
Okay, that's fine.
What commonly happens now is it gets dumped anywhere, and we want to prevent that.
Okay.
Then I added, so I think the last time we asked that you address in the regulations A5 that go through low-impact development scenarios. And I didn't see any of those addressed in this, why you couldn't do them or if you were doing any of them.
We did all groundwater recharge on the site. We've got some grass swales incorporated to guide the water. I don't know what else you'd be looking for in that sense.
Or can you go down the list in writing and say why you
It's
can't?
in the storm, well, it's in the,
why you
it's in the
can't.
drainage report. It's all in there. I mean, it's all ground, it meets the stormwater.
The list that's in the stormwater erosion control bylaw regulations and
No.
why you can or cannot do them is in the
I didn't know I had to
stormwater-
write why I can or cannot do them. I thought we just had to look at them.
It says that you should apply them as you can. I can't remember the exact language.
So if I would have, if I could have,
Okay, can you just address those, please?
I'll try.
Thank you.
Anything else then, Landis?
No. Oh, wait a minute. No, that's it.
Okay. Dean, anything else?
So, in all of this, the phasing, I think one of the things that Landis brought up was the erosion controls during the phasing plan. And I understand they're in these plans, but judging by the timing of the phasing, the 1 year, 2 year, may be beneficial to point out which erosion controls are for which phases. In the erosion control plan, that's fine. Can you color code them or do something significant and say,
Can't color code them because they make copies.
yeah, they're black and white, so I'm just saying, something that says that, oh, hey, this is phase one, temporary erosion controls, temporary stormwater controls. Because, I mean, given a huge packet like this, a contractor's probably it's gonna get lost, probably. I think that would be beneficial. That's about it, though.
Bailey,
No questions at this time, thanks.
Medio,
I don't have anything else right now.
Betsy?
We
Anything new?
know where she's going. Point A through F.
No, it's just, I want to know where we are in this discussion. So at some point, we're going to come back to my queries, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Al?
No, I haven't anything else at the moment.
Okay. Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Please identify yourself for the record. Yes.
Al Rorty, 12 Plain Street. Everybody can hear me?
No, you're on TV. You're on TV.
I can hear me, I'm so close to myself.
It's for television.
We have a TV audience here, so
Live. No, leave it off. It's on automatically.
it's on.
Okay. I live up on Plain Street, about halfway between Lincoln and West. And I'm not sure, I've never been to these meetings before, I'm not sure where the roads outside of the project fall, if it falls on conservation for the road disturbance. Because today I did a brief measurement of roads leading from LaRusso's, if that's where all the gravel's going. And at LaRusso's up to the top of our street, all the roads are 22 feet wide. Okay, so there's a lot of room. As soon as you turn onto Plain Street, it drops down to 18 feet, 19 feet, 18 feet. You get to Lincoln Road, it's almost 18 feet, and that's between rocks and trees. So there's no room for expansion. So when you got 18-wheel dump trailers coming both ways, because if you're doing 80 trucks a day through the school hours and everything, you're going to have trucks passing each other. And right now, with cars on the road, people are just about able to walk the street. We have no sidewalks. We don't have really much room to go if someone's going to hit you. So my question is there going to be some type of road improvement prior to this starting, which will make it safer
Okay.
for everyone?
That is not a conservation.
But that's what I don't know.
I think it's a worthwhile question, but it's not a conservation issue.
Okay.
Um,
Where would you say, which meeting would that fall under?
What would you say, Rob?
I can speak on that item real quick.
Can you see the mic there?
Yeah, go ahead, as long as it's out, go ahead.
So, a couple things. First off, so at the last planning board meeting, all our truck routes went to Walpole. So in the new revised plan, the first route is to come out of the site and go right to Norfolk and out to Route 115. So that's been modified and the gravel removed. That's the primary route now to leave the site. So take some of the burden off the town of Walpole.
So you're going Lincoln Road to Campbell?
Correct.
Out.
Yeah, so that's that. And the other thing is right. So you haven't been at the planning.
Wait a minute.
Let me finish what I'm saying. So, that's one change that we made, is that the routes are gonna go, the primary route will be towards Norfolk. The second thing we did was Mr. Walsh had provided a letter to the planning board with the consent that he would do some off-site improvements upon approval of the project, and those improvements were work on Deerfield Road, which was to replace the sidewalk, to repave Plain Street, which is the one you live on, because they put a water line in and the road's in disrepair since then, so the town engineer had requested that. And what was the third one? I thought there was one more, but maybe that was it.
Okay, as I said, it's not a conservation issue.
It's not conservation,
so,
right.
I don't want to belabor this, but I think, again, your question, you still have a planning board hearing, you said?
Correct.
When is that?
That would fall under planning board.
Yes.
Yes.
When is your planning board hearing?
November 4th.
You got that? So if you have questions, it
Okay,
would be
but I-
well to address
But I
that.
want to make a comment to
Go
his
ahead.
question,
Go ahead.
because it actually points to what I was saying about CBA and the frustration that it must feel occasionally to be a resident on the other side of the table, wondering to which board you're directing the question. Okay, you got it wrong this time. We can't help you with that. But I don't want to leave the possibility of ZBA off the table, since this is a residential neighborhood, zone residential, and I don't want to take the chance, given the number of trucks that are going to go up and down the road, whether it's Norfolk or us, that we didn't cover that base. And so our answer should be, in my opinion, let's make sure ZBA gets to weigh in too. Is this the right kind of project on this scale for this residential neighborhood?
Okay. Anyone else in the audience have a question or comment?
Me again, I'm back. So I live on Lincoln Road. I'm significantly impacted by this as well. I have traffic concerns also. But what I wanted to talk about is, there's a lot of other impacts here. The gravel removal operation, you've got the agricultural, it's an agriculturally zoned area. It might be residential, but it's agriculturally zoned. You have livestock, you have a hunting preserve that's right there, you have animals, et cetera. You're now talking about years and years and years of construction, which will permanently change that area for what it's supposed to be zoned for, which is an agricultural use. And now what you're now saying is you're gonna put in construction use for 5, 10 years, who knows how long. In addition, BOH, has BOH approved this plan yet? BOH, Board of Health?
Board of Health?
Mhm. You sure? Because I have the last meeting minutes from April 6, 2021. Have you been back to the Board of Health since then?
Yes, they followed up and
Okay.
completed the letter.
Excellent.
They listed the way they voted in favor.
Okay, because that's not on their website. At that time, they had asked for what mitigation tactics you could have for, that would lessen the impact on the riverfront wetland and buffer zone. And was that provided to them?
No.
So they approved it without getting that?
Wait, we need another microphone if you're gonna go back and forth.
It's the Board of Health's responsibility to provide comments to the boards. It's not, we don't respond directly to them. We respond to the boards that they comment to. Hey.
Oh, that's okay, I can use this, thank you.
Right here, please, thank you.
There you go, there you go.
And to respond to that, we did remove all the work within the 200-foot riparian and within the 100-foot buffers to the wetlands. So there's no work within the buffer zones.
What about septic system? Who's taking into account all the septic runoff, septic fields, et cetera? Whose role is that?
That's the Board of Health.
Again, you go back to the Board of Health
Board of
with
Health.
that question.
Even if it is potentially in conservation land or wetlands,
They
Stop
would have to
River?
file with us when it comes to individual lots. If it's within our jurisdiction, there would be a filing.
So if you already know that's a potential, you wouldn't want to review it? So if you guys are approving a plan as a whole?
What we're approving right now is not a notice of intent, it's just the land disturbance. That's what the application is for now, is a land disturbance permit, and which has nothing to do with septic system.
So I'm going to echo Betsy's frustration as a resident also of Walpole and someone who's directly impacted of this, that it is really frustrating that this is being piecemealed. This is going to be a long-term impact for all of us that live here for many, many years. And, I was looking at the plans that they submitted, and they have septic fields running through the wetlands. And I don't know how you guys feel about that. That's going to be coming down the road. But-
That's not correct.
It's not correct.
I was looking at the plans from that, where the leach fields were.
There's no leach field proposed, there's no work proposed within any wetlands or within 100 feet of any wetlands. It's
So
on the plan.
I got Kate forwarded that to me, and
Probably not looking at the plan correctly, but
well, I'm looking at the line, it says 200 feet, and it shows a little septic thing right
not the
there within it.
wetlands. That's not
It
the
was
wetlands.
on this section in lots 3 and 4, right around lot 4,
There's no.
was one of them, and then in lot 14 also, were the ones, I'm just looking at
Again,
it.
that's not what is before
Okay.
us this evening.
So then the next,
Just to clarify.
thank you.
So previous to these hearings, the applicant submitted what was called an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, a very long name for. They had their wetland specialists go out to the site and flag the wetlands, put flags where the actual wetlands boundary is, delineate where the stop river was and the tributary. They submitted that to the Conservation Commission, and then I went out with Joyce Hastings, who had delineated it, and looked at the wetland resource areas and where the river is. And that was all put on a plan, and then it came before the Conservation Commission for a hearing, like we're doing now, and the commission approved those lines. So what is out there is a wetlands, a bordering vegetative wetlands along the edge of the streams. And then another, what we call wetlands resource, is the riverfront area. So the riverfront area is a 200-foot boundary from the edge of the river upgrade. So it's not a wetlands.
Okay.
It's an area of upland, which the state determined to be an important resource to protect the river. And it has certain regulations, a whole section of the Wetlands Protection Act regulations that pertain to that section.
So that's the one that gives you the
And that's probably
purview.
what you saw. So
Maybe-
they may
maybe.
have proposed a portion of a septic system in the riverfront area. Is that correct?
Pulled it back.
So when that happens, if they decide to move forward on that, they will have to file another application, have another public hearing, notify abutters.
I know, but it's
of
too
any
late
work
then. I
within
mean, I
that
appreciate that, but it's like,
jurisdiction.
it's too late then. They've already, raped the land of all of its material and destroyed put in a road, and we've been dealing with construction for years, and it's too late at that point. But I appreciate what you're saying,
That is
so.
allowable no matter what, under the regulations,
Got
it is allowable.
Then
So
aren't you
they would-
also allowed
they
to
would be
ask for an
permitted.
environmental impact study on that
That's-
piece of it? Just so that we have because we are all concerned of that. You've got diesel trucks running
That's
down the
another
road.
state regulation.
Okay, that's the River Act, right, that has the,
No,
the environmental
environmental
impact?
impact would be under NEPA. It's a state regulation.
Okay, I thought it was under the River Act. I'll double check that then. I thought it was the River Act that said that, but I will double check that. So thank you for that explanation. That was actually very helpful. I'm looking at land use as well, under zoning, and under Section 5, use and regulations. It says where an activity might be classified under more or one of the following uses, the more specific classification shall govern. If equally specific, more restrictive shall govern. Use is not classifiable under any category listed for applicable district or prohibited unless provisions for said uses are provided elsewhere in the zoning laws. There's also something about the relationship between multiple special permits where that you guys would have the right to have those hearings together. So if you had multiple special permits that you're looking for, that you can actually, reach out to each other and have a hearing together, which is something that I think is really important. I'm also looking at the activities that require special permits for the zoning board, and it just says, under the provisions of Section 4 of 5, so this is just under excavation or filling of earth. I'm not even addressing the commercial gravel pit, which they also have a lot of regulations on, and that might help mitigate some of the concerns that we've all been talking about. How is that, how they rinse the trucks and what that's gonna look like, and the hours of operation and the frequency. I think it was like every 3 hours versus one every 5 or 6 minutes, which was what's being proposed. But it does say that under the activities requiring a special permit, Section 4, that activities associated with a residential use that will involve excavation or filling of 100 cubic yards, we're talking 600,000 cubic yards, of earth or more per year, except those required in subdivision 5D3 above. So this falls under that as well. If nothing else, I would like to just really ask you guys to please put forth this to the zoning board. And that might help alleviate a lot of the concerns that my neighbors have. We've been talking, my neighbors and myself, and I have over 25 people that have signed a petition begging you guys to please say no, based on the environmental impacts, et cetera. I'm just beginning. I mean, overall in Walpole, we have about 40 people that have been signing the petition. I don't know if you guys want it piecemealed or if you want to wait for it. I don't know how that works or if that's helpful or not, but the direct neighbors I'm talking about are on Lincoln Road, Breezewood, Plain, and West. All of us that live in this area and do not want to see this happen in this manner. If it's going to happen, we definitely want to make sure that there are safeguards in place, maybe a smaller subdivision. The fact that he's maximizing this land, to me, just doesn't make sense also, that everyone's having to bend over backwards to put in 24 houses. If you want to put in some houses, maybe put in 10. Does it need to be 24? Knowing all of these waivers and special permits and things that he's having to come to you guys for. At what point do you start saying, this is just not the proper use for it, or that we need to put something in place so that it doesn't need to be completely devastated in the way that it is, to minimize the impact on the environment? Being the Conservation Commission, I would hope that it's more than just a stormwater report that you guys are going to be taking under consideration, that it's the entire impact of what this subdivision will do in an agriculturally zoned area that is a natural habitat to many animals. You've got the river right there as well. The river that, goes through Norfolk. I mean, it's interesting you're going to go through Norfolk now. Do we have to now loop them in their Conservation Commission on that also? Because now they're talking about going through Norfolk and their planning board, because that's, because it's going to be a removal operation that's going to impact them. I don't know how it works. So I'm going to ask you guys that. What happens next as far as Norfolk, if that's going to be the route? Do they get looped in?
We have no issue with whatever they're doing. What's going through Norfolk is traffic, and that's not a conservation issue.
Okay. But the impact on
Do
the
you have anything more
river?
that you'd like to add with respect to conservation?
If I could just, a copy did go to the Norfolk Conservation Commission, and they had no comments.
Okay, thank you. That's actually super helpful. So who then, as far as that, looking at this as a whole, again, who's going to do that?
Who's going to do what?
Look at the plan as a whole. I mean, if you're approving a subdivision, and you know down the
We're not
road.
approving a subdivision, we're approving a land disturbance permit.
That is
That
for a
is-
subdivision.
That's what is proposed, but that is not what is before us.
So, but that's what's going to happen.
So again, what is your question?
My question is,
You
at
have a
what point,
question.
so at what point do we have a responsibility to recognize and look at something as a whole and not just piecemeal it, especially when you're talking about the environment? I mean, think how long it's taken us to do what we've done with the climate. I mean, it takes a long time, and it's piece by piece by piece. So we have an opportunity here and we're talking only 28 acres and 24 units, to look at it as a whole, knowing that this is what their intent is. They're telling you we're putting in 24 homes with 24 septic systems that are right against a river, and that's a concern. And they're gonna be taking all the gravel, which is sediment, et cetera, and how is that gonna impact and trickle down? And also, I was talking to a really lovely woman that lives at the bottom of the hill, and she was telling me that she has about 3 different sump pumps in her basement because her house is part of the water table. It would have been approved now. It was like in 1600s, I think it was. So she has water table issues in her basement. I'm going to go back to then, let's talk about water table. Back in the beginning, last week, 2 weeks ago, you said you did some borings for water table, correct? And you did it at the top of the hill, right? Top of the hill. What is standard? Do you do multiple borings in multiple locations?
Again, this is, we're before us
Yes.
is the land
Okay.
disturbance permit.
Right, but last week, we talked about, 2 weeks ago, water boring, when you're asking about the the water table. I'm new to
Whatever the water
this,
table is not pertinent to this discussion.
to this discussion.
Well, it is in terms of the stormwater design, because that is covered under the stormwater erosion control bylaw. So they would need to do dig soil tests in the areas they're proposing infiltration basins. We want to know where the groundwater is. It has to be at least 4 feet from the bottom of the basin. So they have to show that on their plans.
Okay, so there'd be more borings that they would have to do
They
at different
did. I mean,
levels?
it could be that once they cut the gravel, once they cut down to the level of where the basins are gonna be shaped, that we are then asked to verify the groundwater. That could be a condition of.
Okay. So if we're looking at this in phases, as you guys are, I got phase 1, 2, and 3, and you're only looking at phase 1 right now, but the planning board has the full road in front of them, right? So I'm assuming You're looking at erosion control on just phase one. Who's gonna look at the
No,
erosion?
everything. We're looking at the
All of it,
whole
okay.
site, but
Okay.
all the, if I can, again, just clarify.
Thank you.
The commission's looking at the whole site. They're
Okay.
looking at everything that the applicant has proposed in their plan, which includes the road going in, which includes the grading for the site, which includes the stormwater, includes where they're putting the houses. They should be putting roof drains. We are looking at everything.
Okay.
What you have to understand, and that's true for every board, your jurisdiction is only the laws and the regulations that govern the board. That's it.
Right.
And that may be an issue with how things are customized in Massachusetts and other communities too. There's a Board of Health and they have a law and they have regulations. Well, that's where they have to go. They can't go other places.
But they
And that's
couldn't-
the same thing, because that's the way it is.
Couldn't you then,
We can
though,
make
just-
comments to other boards, which we do.
Oh, and ask for comments too.
And
So
we ask for comments, and
Okay.
I'm in planning, zoning, and conservation, so staff, we talk all the time. So it's not, I don't think it's as clear cut as we're all in our little boxes and we don't talk to each other, because that's not true.
Okay.
Staff
So-
talks to each other, we know what other issues, we write comments to other boards and stuff, but each board and commission, they have rules and regulations that they have been appointed or elected to uphold, and that's where they have to focus, and that's the form of government that we live in.
So how come the zoning hasn't been looped in then?
I don't know what is zoning involved in this?
Not that I know of.
There's been no application to the zoning board.
So there's no, it's not necessary to go before zoning for
We've
this
been in front of the
project?
planning board. We're not asking for any waivers, we're not asking for any special permits. This is all a matter of right, we meet the regulations. So to say that we're, circumventing this and that, and that we're looking for
Okay,
special
so-
relief, we're not looking for special relief.
So it won't
So
go before
we're
zoning?
complying with all the regulations for the planning board. We've complied with your board, we're trying to comply, that's why we're here tonight. We're listening to the comments, we're gonna make changes, we're gonna do what's necessary to make this board comfortable with the land disturbance that's taking place. So there is a process. There are boards that we have to go in front of. All the boards get notified. When these plans are submitted to the planning board, they go to the police, they go to the fire, they go to the zoning, they go to Board of Health, they go to building. Everybody gets an opportunity to comment within the town. It's not like you said, Landis. The town knows this plan is before it. Fire department's commented on it, police department looks at it. Everyone has a chance to look at these plans. Zoning board has looked at it. Everybody has seen it.
Zoning hasn't. I called them and I asked them.
Zoning gets a copy of the filing when it's filed with the planning board. Every
So
board
I-
gets a
I'd-
copy.
I had asked zoning,
We have not filed formally anything with the zoning board.
And no one's asked for their
But zoning
comment.
board has been copied from the planning board. Anything that's filed with them, that's requirement of the planning board. All the boards get copied with the
All right.
filing.
so do
Do
they
you
have?
have any, do you have any other questions?
I do. I want you guys to, I'm begging you to please just ask them to review this if this is an appropriate use of the
The
land.
meeting, if it isn't required to go before the zoning board, then it
But how do
doesn't
you
have to.
know that? That you're
Because they're
taking their word,
conforming.
and I'm,
Building
right.
inspector
No.
that would direct
okay, so we should talk to the building inspector?
I would just
Okay,
like to add.
thank you.
add a co-
That I can
all right.
do,
Thank you.
and that I will do.
Just like to make a comment. As a property owner has some rights to develop that property as long as it conforms to whatever the rules and regulations are for that particular location. And if you want to go back far enough, this is a nice wooded property, a lot of animals there. Take a look at your house and my house and everybody else's house here. It wasn't there originally. And if we apply that same, we don't want it because it's a beautiful piece of property, there would be no housing in Walpole. Nobody would live here. So I think we need to keep that in mind. As long as a property owner does the files with the appropriate boards and conforms to all the rules and regulations, and there are a lot of them that they have to conform to, then it's something that is allowed. So, leave it with that. So, anyone else have any questions or comments they'd like to make? Okay. We need to, is there any reason we need to continue the hearing? I think there's a number of issues we need to
Can I ask one more
address.
question? I just remembered, sorry. Where's the kettle hole?
Which one?
Which one?
The kettle hole basin.
Where's the kettle hole? Up there. What?
The one that I spelled out, I talked about?
Yeah, that's, okay. And it's not, it's been reviewed. I don't remember looking at that area when I was out there with Joyce, so I was just, it keeps on referring to it.
There's a monitor pipe in the middle of it.
There's a monitor report, okay, okay, so there's just the, it's just a dip in the topography.
It's, I don't know, well, it's low in the, it's just a big hole. Well, yeah, this is where the,
You know, you guys are on TV discussing.
Okay,
yeah, that's it.
do we need to continue this?
Mr. Chair, if I may on that point, Mr. Truax won't be able to make the next meeting, so I'd suggest that certainly there are things that we need to address, but I'd suggest that if they're to be addressed, we have them as conditions of approval and that we close the hearing tonight.
I think we need to come up with some, I don't think we're actually prepared to do, we got conditions, do we have enough addressed? You needed to give us some answers also.
So,
There were some questions that we asked you to address.
so you were looking for some concrete washout areas,
Yeah, that,
some phasing of the erosion controls,
and your response to.
why we're not using more about the low-impact development.
Yeah.
And why you're not minimizing
Which
disturbance?
I think you can do. What I would rather do,
I feel I've already given the answer about the minimizing
well, you
disturbance.
can tell us where to find out any information you've given us, or summarize it and give it to us again.
It's in the letter. I think that's our explanation. I don't know how other way to explain it, other than we're.
That you've looked at other possibilities
I
that
have
would
not-
minimize
I've-
disturbance.
When you say look at other possibilities, you don't have a lot of other possibilities when you design a road. You have to live by the regulations and the zoning, the planning board regs. I mean, I have curvatures I have to meet, centerline curves. I have elevations I have to meet. I can only make the road so steep. I have intersections that have to be 90 degrees or can go up to 60 degrees. I can't put a road that comes up here and sweeps around this hill. I can't meet the regulations to do that.
And the lot constructions, you can't build the houses without cutting everything
The lots are
down.
pretty small. I have a berm in the back of this lot. This area that's being built on is only about 25,000 square feet. I mean, this lot down here is only building on about 15,000 square feet. The one near the riverfront, the one in the back here with basin, I mean, I've limited the area of use for the homeowners is not 40,000 square feet. They're very reduced. These are probably the biggest ones right here, these two. These are reduced due to the grading in the back of the yards. These are reduced all through here. Look, this is the whole lot that's being used right here. It's half the lot. So it has been minimized. We're showing the septics and the houses in a general manner, and after that, the lot's not really being used anymore. That's what's being used. We're not using 40,000 square feet of grass area on a lot. We don't have that. And when you look at the plan and you look at the grading and where the house and septic sit, you'll see that most of them are about 3/4 of the lots being utilized for home ownership. I mean, it's not a lot of area. Now, we're cutting out, so there's a footprint, there's a perimeter, we're building a berm, we want the site lower to berm ourselves from the gun club. We want a 20-foot high berm. We built that berm so that the top of that berm is gonna be about the same height as the gutter line on the houses on that side. And that was a goal we were looking to achieve. so that that house gutter line is even with the top of the berm. So gutter line's about 20 feet up on a two-story house. And that, you know, that was planned that way. We put that berm all the way around those lots, and then we're putting trees on the top. So we're putting evergreens on the top, so there was a lot of planning that went into it. We didn't just, I mean, and then we started at Deerfield, which is, you know, 50 feet down from the top of the hill, and it's only 300 feet of road. I mean, you go up at 7% in 300 feet, you're not coming up very far. You have to have leveling areas when you get to the intersection. You just can't come up at 10% and hit the intersection. You have to level out. That's what's in the subdivision regs. That's how we designed it.
So the concrete, the working areas, the staging areas that I think we agreed that they would be per phase.
We can do that per phase,
And
that's
then
not an issue.
addressing the lids that are in the regulations. Then also with the stormwater management during construction and after construction, how they're gonna be built in the notes, just per phase.
Oh, the temporary basins?
The temporary basins and the permanent basins.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that. Is there anything else? Any other information that we wanted?
Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
Is there a reason that Deerfield Drive has to connect to proposed Parsons Lane?
Yes, because you're only allowed to have a 750-foot dead end, so the project would end about here.
You need two ways out.
Oh, I see, because the
You
dead,
need to
oh,
have
I
a
see.
roadway. So you're only allowed a dead-end street of 750 feet. So without that connection, this part of the land, you wouldn't be able to develop all their land.
Thank you.
Do we have enough information to put our conditions in?
It's up to the board. These items, the board is happy with, that they've minimized the disturbance. The phase, you know, the phasing plan items can be addressed. You know, and the lid, low-impact development section, you know, I don't know, to me, it's been in there since the beginning of, since 2007, and people just usually ignore it, and
Well, I'll be honest with you.
I don't, it's not in there to just have people say, oh, we can't do this, we can't do this, we can't do this. It's because they are methods that are better for,
Give me one lit example. So are you thinking like rain gardens? Is that one of them?
rain gardens is one of them, bioretentions area, working within the natural contours of
So
the
one of
lot.
the issues that we have with rain gardens in this area, and it's in the DEP stormwater regs, is before you can discharge to it, you have to remove 80% of the TSS. So I've tried to put those in on Moose Hill Road, if you recall, way back when. And when they did the review, I can't remove that without putting a sand filter in. So what happens is it becomes so it's just not cost effective, so that the developers, I mean, I design it based on, you know, what the developers are looking at. They don't wanna spend an extra $100,000 just to have a rain garden. They just, you know, and I get it, they're, you know, they just don't, because of the design requirement to put them in, they're not cost effective, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, and to be honest, this system we're putting in is all groundwater recharge. It does the same thing as a rain garden. It's no different. It's gonna recharge the groundwater. So it's getting 100% TSS removal. Nothing's discharging off the site into a wetland. Everything's going back into the ground. Every house has a recharge system that's designed to handle a 100-year storm event. Every basin is designed to handle it, so, and it's spread out throughout the site, so you have a bunch of small ones, and you have a couple centralized ones, but it's all spread out, so I mean, other than saying it's a rain garden, it's doing the same effects. It's removing the TSS, the pathogens, all of that, because it has to go through the soil to get to the groundwater. It's designed almost in the same respect as you would design a leaching field for a septic system. You know, those go in the ground, they're 4 feet above groundwater. These systems are all 4 feet plus above groundwater, some of them are more. And they're providing the same treatment as you would get if you were putting sewage into the ground. But it's not sewage, it's cleaner water than sewage. Obviously, it's rainwater. So you're getting the same treatment you would get. Everything's recharged. This is the perfect site to do groundwater recharge because you have sands and gravels. If it was till and high water tables, we wouldn't have the ability to do that. We'd be doing drainage basins and detaining the water and overflowing.
Rob, I think what Landis might be getting at is that there's a whole list of ways to minimize impact. Minimizing impact is in our bylaw, it's not in planning's, I guess, but it's in ours. And I think that not just arguing each one ad hoc, but going down the list as though you were taking it seriously, that it's in our bylaw, minimizing the impact of the site and going with natural contours.
If I could address the distinction again, that's in the regulations and not the bylaw. And the regulation is an interpretation of, that the commission's making of the bylaw. The bylaw is what governs, and
Yeah, but we're the commission and you're before us, and we're requesting
We
it.
always enforce our regulations. Why would we have our regulations if we didn't enforce them?
I guess from a lawyer's
All
perspective.
regulations.
Certainly, but from a lawyer's perspective, when you look at a regulation,
And our bylaw says that the commission can promulgate draft regulations, and
Yeah, and you've been sitting here for 2 hours before us, so it just seems like if there are a list of things by which oh, Bob, you're shaking your head now.
I know, I am.
Rather than arguing each one as they come up ad hoc, Landis mentions rain gardens, you do a 20-minute thing on rain gardens, then Landis will mention something else. I think that's what Landis might be getting at.
But if you review the plans, a lot of those things are in there. We have recharge, we have grass swales. We have drainage swales that are guiding the water behind the houses to get it to the detention basins. Those are grass swales, they're in there. We put them in easements for they're private easements because the town's not gonna maintain them. So we've done a lot of that, and I put that in there. So I mean, as far as minimizing disturbance, I don't know how I can minimize disturbance when I have a hill that goes up 60 feet and 60 feet. I can't put a road up that hill.
yeah, I think that's
It's
the point.
impossible.
You can't.
I can't. It's, you can barely walk up it, and I can't,
All right.
let alone drive up it.
All right,
So, I mean,
looking at the site and the topography, it limits what, what can be done from a development standpoint to have a minimal disturbance of the land. I don't see how, I agree with what the engineer is proposing, suggesting here, that in order to meet the road requirements between grades and site distance and all the other things that he has cited, it creates a challenge to meet the minimal disturbance. So I think, again, it's my opinion that as a property owner, he has the right to develop it. And he's meeting the requirements, going before the boards as required. And I don't disagree with the idea of trying to minimize development. This was a flat site, it would be a different project, but it isn't. And I think we have to take that into account. So I would, if we are prepared to, if you have all the information you need to do to write up an order, I would suggest that we.
Well, I prefer if you want to close the hearing and then we wait to write the decision to vote the decision at the next hearing, if that's
That would be my
appropriate,
suggestion.
if that's okay.
that's agreeable.
And you'd give us the extension of time to get.
yeah. That's fine.
And if,
You have 21 days, or how does that work, actually?
Yeah, I think it's 21 days.
21?
Just,
If you want more time, we can give you more time. That's not an issue.
next hearing is what? It is in 2 weeks, I think, isn't
I
it?
think it is, 10th, right. Yeah, so.
So just a little technicality, does that make my two queries a moot point? If we were to close it, if so, I'll vote against closing it and argue against it.
Well, if you want to continue that discussion now, and we can decide that, you want to write a letter to the planning board.
No, not planning, not planning.
I'm not planning,
No.
zoning.
Zoning with just a query and I'm not the only one who's asked the question in so many words. It's almost like asking for another set of eyes, and this set of eyes has as its jurisdiction, part of it, gravel, according to the town attorney. And by the way, the town attorney wrote us a nice piece of verbiage here, that's great, and we requested it. But this is not before the town attorney, it's before a board. Town attorney's not gonna decide this, board's gonna decide it. So what the town attorney points out is we don't have gravel in our bylaws and regs. Zoning does. I would like to pose the question. I would like to hear them say that removing 410 cubic yards, 40 trips per day down whoever's road, 80 round trips, is not a gravel operation in their purview. I just want them to tell us that, just, oh no, you're crazy, Betsy, it's not a gravel operation. Why cannot we ask that?
Okay, I would, you haven't been recognized, please. If you want to say something, we'll get to that.
And then,
All right.
while we're at it, the building inspector, again, surprise, I didn't realize the building inspector had that as his purview, but, and just let them say, oh no. And by the way, as far as them having seen this before, I know how that goes because we have at the end of our meeting, when we get to it, our board comments, we have like 4 potential board comments. I know how that goes. You don't necessarily see by the end of the evening, you're not all spreading out all this stuff and studying it. Here's the gravel removal operation. Ask them if they think it's in their purview, considering that their purview is a certain bylaw.
It's my opinion that you requested at the last hearing that we contact town council
Right.
with the question, in which we did ask them, and we got an answer, and they gave us an answer. I think the answer is that, as town council said, I don't see any point.
No, I actually asked the question that they didn't answer, and Landis, I think this is correct. One of the questions that we asked was, what is the threshold for a commercial gravel operation? And the town council left it sort of vague, because that's the nature of town bylaws, and that's why we have boards.
I still think it's covered in his answer, that basically the purpose of this
So you're hesitant,
application is a housing subdivision.
so you're hesitant
The main
to
purpose.
make the question to zoning, who will simply reply, yes or no?
If I could just interject on that point,
Go ahead.
if I may. I think the more important thing that the town council addressed is question number 1, which frankly is the only reason I'm here tonight, which town council determined that the question of whether it's a commercial gravel operation or not became moot 35 years ago.
No, the question about whether you're allowed to have a commercial.
Right, but that's only pursuant to the deed restriction.
That's
which-
right. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about the second question, where we're trying to get at the definition of one, whether there's some sort of volumetric threshold. Okay, it's 600,000 yards. And,
I don't think it's pertinent based on the answer
I
we
can't
got
see
from
the
town council.
so I've seen the
I would say,
CBA on television, they're just people like
No,
us. They'll either
so-
answer us yes or no, just like we would them.
we'll
If
take a-
CBA
we'll put it before the
asked
commission.
us, we'd say yes.
Does the commission want to pursue this through the, further with the zoning board, or do we take town council's response as the answer to the question?
I want to
So-
rephrase that. It's not do we want to pursue it, the question that I'm asking, it's not do we want to pursue it through ZBA, there's no mechanism for us to pursue anything through ZBA. the question is actually a little more innocent than that. It's very similar to the question that we're gonna be asked at the end of the night to comment, right? And I want to say, this, since this has been going on for months and months and months, ZBA, can we update you? We have a gravel removal operation. Would you be willing to comment on it?
They're not aware of this, they haven't seen this plan?
Certainly not this is practically brand new. I mean, this is, we're only just seeing some of this.
Phasings, but as far as the removal of the gravel, they're not aware of this?
Yeah, I got my thoughts.
I'm assuming they would
Any more
have
than
gotten
we would be.
copies for comments.
I'll make a suggestion. You got a legal opinion. Planning board got the same legal opinion. They asked the same question to town council, is this a commercial operation? And they got their answer, same as you did.
Do you have a copy of that?
I don't have one handy, but I can get that for you, I'm sure. So you have two opinions from town council that this is not commercial gravel removal operation. You can ask ZBA the question.
Yeah.
They're gonna refer it to town council, or they're gonna refer it to the building inspector.
Okay.
So why don't you go right and ask the building inspector?
I know, that is one of my suggestions
So
as
you can
well.
walk down the hall and have a conversation with them.
No, I personally can't do that. No, that I think I know. I think I personally cannot have a consult with the building inspector. It has to be done through these official channels in a public way so that everybody knows what we're doing.
Well, again, it's my opinion that the answer we got from town council answers our question. So I would like to, if we want to pursue this further, it's up to the commission. So do we want to pursue this further, or do we take town council's answer?
I'm with you, Jack.
So, Dean,
I agree with town council.
I
Eric,
would like to pursue further.
Medio,
Agree with town council on that one.
Betsy?
Yeah, I would like to pursue it further, but pursue is not the word. I mean, it's like
Whichever it
a
is.
two-sentence letter that we're not gonna write,
Al?
but, yeah.
I'd like to hear what the zoning board and the building inspector have to say.
Okay. I'm opposed to that, pursuing this further. So, identify yourself, please.
Sure, Steve Johansson, I'm a resident of Walpole, I live on Most Ave.
You have to come up to the mic, sir, please, if you would.
Oh, we got.
There you go, green means go. I've been attending a number of meetings, both planning board and conservation commission meetings on this particular subject. I'm a resident of the town, I've been a resident of the town for over 40 years. I know this property actually pretty well. But what I don't understand is, I think what Betsy was trying to say is, why are not all of the boards looking at this and having making a collective decision on this project? If ZBA has a policy or bylaw or a rule that they have a responsibility for making decisions on, then this should go before the ZBA and get a good answer from them, instead of leaving them out. Let's include all of those parties that need to have input and make decisions on this project. John, earlier tonight, you made a comment about being a member of the community, and communities don't grow, and I'm gonna paraphrase here. No, sorry, Jack. Well, his card says John.
John, that's all right. Yeah.
Jack.
You made a comment about, and I'll paraphrase, if we prevent building from happening, the town won't grow. If we prevent building from not happening, John, if we prevent building from happening here or developments from happening, we end up with places like the farm up off of North Street, Adams Farm. We prevented building from taking place and development from taking place, and now we have an absolutely beautiful public space for town, for residents to take advantage of. I look at this piece of property in the same way. Why should we develop every square foot of green space that Walpole has for housing? Why can't we leave space like this alone? this this is the Conservation Commission, right? Conservation of what? Conservation of land, of resources, of wildlife, of what? This is a highway for wildlife. Move this development into here, that highway goes away. Where does that wildlife go? My point is, not every square foot of property in Walpole, although developable, should be developed. That's all I'm,
Yeah, just
My opinion.
the Conservation Commission is a result of the Wetlands Protection Act and its related issues with that. You're paraphrasing my comments. I don't, that's not what if that's what I said, it's not what I intended. I said that as a property owner has the right to develop that property according to the basic laws and that are required.
I'm a property
If the
owner,
town-
I agree with that
I'm
statement.
not done.
Okay?
In addition, if you wanted to make this open space, Conservation Commission is not opposed to additional open space. It has participated in attempting to get additional open space over the years, but you have to pay for the property, which we did at Adams Farm. The town voted to do that, and there was a reason for that the town had the right of first refusal. On a property like this, I don't think that right existed. So, again, would have, if a number of citizens put a petition together to do that, it could have gone before the town to decide that. It was a vote of the town, as well as a town meeting, to purchase that property at Adams Farm.
I'm aware.
So, there are different ways. If you want to protect property, then buy it, so that you can.
Who owns
keep
this
it.
property?
I don't know who I think the prior owner,
The owners on the application are John Hassenyeager and Mr. Lucivita.
And Lucivita. So is it their intent to develop this property, or is it Mr. Walsh's intent to develop the property?
I would expect that Mr. Walsh must have an agreement with Mr. Lucivita and Mr. Hassenyeager to do that, or they wouldn't expect that they would proceed with what they're doing here, with considering this is not inexpensive to present this
No, it's
stuff,
not.
that they must
Right.
have a reason for doing it.
Okay,
So,
my only question, to your point earlier, property owners should have the right to do things with their own property as they see fit, and right now it's not his property.
Within the rules of the,
Right.
yes.
Yep.
Not the
Currently,
right
it's
to
not
do
his property
anything.
to do it.
He's the applicant.
Right.
So, again, if you
That
wanted
might
to do that, you could talk to Mr. Hassenyeager or Mr. Lucivita and see if you could get a group together, or the town, to buy the property. You know, there are a number of situations that have come up over the last number of years where we have attempted, one way or another, to buy open space, to keep it as open space. And without being able to come up with the necessary funding, you wind up, it gets developed. So, again, that property owner has the right to sell the property, to develop it themselves, or to give it, donate it. And there are donations that are made, not of a parcel this size, in recent memory anyhow, around here. But we have had donations of property because people wanted to keep it as open space. So, all right, so we want to go to the proposal letter, if you would put together how you want that worded, and we'll pursue that with the zoning board and the building inspector.
All right,
So as a result, I'll keep the hearing open until the 10th, at which point we'll see what the results of that letter is. We'll need a response prior to our meeting of November 10th. So we'll have to put this on the agenda for,
Mr. Chair, I'm just trying to
go ahead.
get my bearings. It sounded as if before we were going to close the hearing, and
Well, we still have an open question, so I think it would not be appropriate from our standpoint to close the hearing.
Mr. Chairman, could we close the hearing and you could seek the opinion and vote accordingly?
At the end of the day, the opinion's not gonna affect what this board is doing. It's only gonna affect whether we have to go in front of the ZBA.
and respectfully to the board, there's nothing in the regulations or the bylaws about inquiring of the ZBA about what to do with respect to a land disturbance permit. It's just simply not within the procedure.
There is compliance with local, state, and federal, all applicable laws.
Our procedure is to ask for comments all the time. We're always asking for comments, so that isn't our procedure. But that is an interesting question, Jack. We can communicate with ZBA, and ZBA can communicate back. It might not have exact bearing on this one exact question that they're asking about.
If your concern is, does the applicant have to go before the ZBA for a gravel removal permit
In a residentially
in a
zoned
residential area,
place.
then it already does say, and I can't remember if it's bylaw or regulations, might be both, that they have to comply with all applicable local, state, and federal laws. So I mean, it's already there, but you could condition that the permit is not valid until they comply with all the local, state, and federal laws.
Function-
If indeed they have to go before the zoning board.
And that's always the case. I mean, they always have to comply with all.
Correct. Functionally, what would happen is if we weren't in compliance, the building inspector would cite us for a zoning violation, and we'd be in front of the ZBA. So I'd suggest that,
It's the building inspector that makes the call if they go before the zoning board or not. It's the zoning board that just makes the decisions.
with that said, I'd just suggest that it's independent of the determination of the land disturbance permit. It can be a separate question, but it's just not, doesn't have any bearing on what we're here tonight for.
So we could close the hearing and
Well, I want to come
with
back.
our conditions, and including the response from the zoning board and/or building inspector.
Closing the hearing just means you have to act upon the information that has been provided to you.
Right, so I was just a little bit concerned, Landis, in that we keep going around in circles about minimal disturbance and, hearing ad hoc comments about it, and so,
Well, that's
We have
another, that's part of your decision, if you feel like they've provided you with enough information on that or not. And they said they've given you everything they're gonna give.
Okay, so why don't we close the hearing and wait till it's 2 weeks. So that'll give 2 weeks, we have another week. And we could do the order
Bailey has a
at our,
question.
pardon?
Bailey has a question.
Does closing the hearing mean I agree to approve the land disturbance permit? Okay.
No,
Thank you.
it just means that
No, we've heard enough.
that you've
That we've heard
stopped,
enough.
right, you've gotten all the information that you need to then discuss and issue a decision. And the decision could be, to accept all or part of their proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Is that agreeable with everybody? So we can close the hearing, and we'll write the order, write the letter,
Yeah,
and then we'll write our order at the next hearing based on, including the information we get back.
yeah.
So that we vote on the order in the next meeting.
Right.
Okay.
I assume we'll make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 600.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, what else do we have? Minutes from the last meeting, and I think, did we vote the minutes from the meeting before? I don't think so.
Well, you weren't here, Allery, so.
I wasn't here, I don't think you guys voted them.
We didn't vote them, so we have two sets of minutes to vote. One would have been
9:22.
9:22 was the meeting, okay. Did everybody look at that? So we can, and I don't know,
Yep.
see.
GTG.
Everybody was here for that. You weren't here
You
for the
wasn't.
last one.
For the 9/22, I was not, no, you're right. I wasn't.
Well, you weren't here for the 13th,
I
were
was
you?
not there, yeah, not that one either, no,
You missed two of them,
I did.
okay.
You watch them?
Do I still get paid?
The usual.
Can he watch two videos?
No, you can only watch
Well, you can
one.
watch two videos, but you can't watch
Two of the same,
two public hearings.
two of the same public hearings.
Two of the same public
hearing.
hearing. You can only miss one public hearing and go back and look at it.
So that means at some point he can't vote on something or other. We just don't know what it is.
When did we start this thing? Last meeting, wasn't it?
We'll look at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
So-
and figure out which meeting he can't vote on.
Yeah.
Which-
You weren't
yeah.
here for the 22nd
No.
of September or the 13th.
Right.
Okay,
Choose the
No.
more important one.
all right, so the September 20, well, all we're doing is voting the minutes. So the minutes of September 22nd, someone make a motion to accept those.
So moved.
We had them in our last meeting. We have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye,
Aye.
opposed, and one abstain, so 501. And the minutes from October 13th, someone make that a motion?
I'll move it.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye, opposed, abstained, that's 501. Medio abstaining on both. Okay. All right, so that's that. What else we got here?
Nothing new on Pinnacle Trail.
Okay, nothing new, master plan update, anything on that, Dean? On the master plan?
No, we were supposed to have a meeting yesterday, but they canceled it. So, because someone was in our room, and then the storm, and then the consultant couldn't come, so we're scheduling for next week. So I'm in.
Okay.
So we haven't heard anything back about, the determination, if it was appealed from the Pinnacle? No, nothing?
They take a reasonable time, it's not, doesn't happen
No, no,
overnight,
I-
but it's
come on,
not,
that
it doesn't, typically we'll wind something with a month or so. Okay, on enforcement orders, we got Boyden Estates, anything on that?
Yes, there's been work done out on the site to put the swale in and extend the retaining wall.
I got a question. How is,
Oh, yeah, is it finished, or this?
No,
In process?
it still needs to be stabilized, and I'm not quite sure what happens after.
I was gonna
Up
ask.
to the other side of the fence.
Also, how's it gonna stabilize? What are they gonna put down? Jute mat? They're gonna have to put jute mat
We
down.
told them they had to either sod or,
So sod's gonna grow.
Stabilizer.
It's gonna be November. That's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be luck.
they were told to stabilize it.
Not the best time of year to do
No.
stuff like that.
All right, 1900 Main Street, there's nothing new there.
No,
Brookside Village, I guess there's nothing new there, or Palmer Lane,
yeah,
so,
all on holds.
okay.
So the request for extension for Ramnar and West Street AQV, I really wanted to walk the site before issuing the extension, and I also wanted them to come in to give an update of what's happening out there and why they're asking for the extension. It's been kind of in limbo for a while, and they couldn't attend tonight because of the storm. So, we'll keep them on the agenda for the next
Can you
hearing.
describe briefly to the newest members?
Can we vote on that?
Can you vote on it?
Well, yeah, when this comes up, because it, you know,
An
it's,
extension, yeah.
no, the work in general. Because they're gonna build a huge building, right?
Well, what they're asking for is an extension to the existing order of conditions, which was for a age-qualified village. If they're going to change their plan, they need to, either come back to the commission and say, is this an amendment, or do we have to file a new notice of intent? Right now, they have
So they filed an NOI, they have an order of conditions
to build the AQV, yeah.
Oh, kidding.
But that's, yeah.
When was that done?
So even though you haven't walked it recently, can you describe to the two newest members what they've done thus far on this? Like, we permitted it like 2 years ago, right? Or,
Well,
wouldn't expect
right,
it to be
so
3 years
prior
ago.
to COVID,
yeah,
which COVID, you know, is an issue with people.
Yep.
They did clear the site, they cut and graded and stumped and cleared the site in anticipation of beginning the AQV, but it stopped.
Oh, I
because
see
of
it here.
COVID.
Renmar,
Oh,
it's
that's right.
behind.
It stopped because of COVID, it stopped because there was a young person on a off-road vehicle that went off the side of the cliff and was seriously injured as well. So it's had
Legal issues.
some stuff going
That's
on up
right,
there.
that's right,
Yeah,
remember
and the building inspector actually stopped the project for a while. So that, there was multiple reasons of why the project has not moved forward. There's been some talk about them doing something else, but if they're doing something else, they do have to come back to the commission and either file amendment. If it's totally different, they really need to file a new notice of intent. What they're doing right now is asking for an extension, but I think they should come in and let the commission know what's going on, and if they do have plans to do something different. And they're willing to do that. They're willing to come. They just couldn't come tonight.
Did we give them stormwater erosion controls and they've upheld those for 2 years? Are they sending you SWIP reports?
They don't send us, they have been doing the SWIP, but they don't send it to us. So it's definitely time for me to go out there and take a look
God,
at it.
2 years? I bet those ECs are
I've been
smart.
out there a couple times
Oh.
in the 2 years, but not
I
recently.
bet those ECs like dissolve in a couple of years.
Yeah, right, they did, in the email, they respond back that they had just replaced a lot of the erosion control.
Great.
Socks, so, we'll see what they've done. If there's been issues, they need to clean them up.
Happens, yeah.
Okay, we have, everybody compliance, is any of these ready?
Yeah, sure. So 295 Union Street, we did a permit for Tesla at our last hearing for connection to the sewer. This was a previous filing way back a while ago, because it's, 814 for the septic plan, which they're abandoning. So they never got a certificate of compliance, and it's an expired order of conditions, so that's what you'd be issuing, a certificate of compliance on an expired order of conditions.
Was this a Sunbird? Is that?
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a while
Was
ago.
it? Yeah,
Okay, so we can
issue it, yes.
issue that? Okay, so we'll make that a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same, 600. You got the form?
Yep, do we have a form?
Yep.
Great.
Brookside Village isn't ready yet.
Brookside Village is still not ready. I'll contact them, see what's going on. I thought they would be producing the documentation that I asked for sooner, but I don't know what's going on, so call them. Lost Brook Trail, Lot 2, House 3, he needs to put in the no alteration plaques that were required by the order. I did talk to him just the other day, and I showed him where they are on the plan, and he's gonna put them in.
Is that the bridge one?
Yes.
Thanks.
And then 1034 East Street, Liberty Station. So that's
across
the
the
one on the corner of East and Elm. And, it was the little parcel next to the, railroad bridge that the plan showed that they were supposed to pull up the pavement, do some plantings, so they did do some plantings. They do look odd.
They planted some plants they dug up on another project, or
No, take a look at it, it's very weird. Landis and I were commenting on the strangeness.
did they give a laborer some plants and said, just plant them?
Well, they just kind of put some trees in and then planted rows of shrubs.
They gave an electrician a plant?
So, they did do the plantings. We can always move them around if the parcel gets given to the town. I don't know if that's gonna happen or not. They were gonna also do a turnout lane there, but there's all sorts of issues there with that. There was also a condition that they were supposed to take out the invasive species on the bank, and there's bittersweet in there and lots of junk. They didn't do that. And I did send an email today calling that out, and, I know he still asked if we could still issue the certificate of compliance, and they would remove the invasives. It's up to you guys. I mean, you could issue it and we could hold it in the office.
suggest
I think it's a financial thing for them of why they want the certificate of compliance as soon as possible.
We could do that, and just hold it until they do what they're supposed to do.
We could.
You can tell them we have it ready as soon as they get their work done.
Okay.
Yep,
So someone want to move that, based on that, they will hold it.
I'll move it.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
600. Okay.
I don't know why these people, they just don't read their conditions. Often they don't.
Read your
And
conditions.
then if I forget about one, it's always my fault, so.
We got the
Shame on
paper.
you.
Shame.
This line?
Oh, it's paper? It's really their responsibility.
Yep.
I know, that's why I stand up midway through every time.
Okay,
So,
can I move on while you're signing that?
Yep.
Appeals, yeah, again, back to the appeals. So the appeal of the SORAD for Pinnacle, and that being the river versus pond issue. Have not heard anything from the administrative judge on that, so I don't know. They take a while. The DOA, the one on the historic mill complex, we did a site walk after the last meeting with DP. So usually then they go and they
How'd it go?
discuss it amongst themselves and issue, I think they have 30 days or 45 days, I can't remember, I always get those two mixed up, but,
Did it go well? Oh, I see.
That's what the answer is.
they don't usually engage you in a lot of conversation, they just
They go,
collect information.
Ah, yes.
Harumph.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Plain board comments, so Lincoln Road Estates subdivision. If you want to give any more comments to the planning board on that one. 272, 274 South Street, that's the hash brown project that we issued last time.
They
And
approve that? The planning board approved that?
not yet, no, these are all pending for the planning board. Planning board's asked for comments, sometimes it's revised plans, sometimes it just takes a while longer for them to go through the planning board than us.
See how routine asking for comments is?
Ask for comments.
With South Street, so we just tell them that
You
we
can
have an
take
order
as
of
much
conditions.
time as you want to review the planning board plans.
No,
and
I
make
know, Landis,
comments.
I'm just saying that sometimes okay, I said, at the end of the meeting, when we're all really tired,
Here we
we're
go.
gonna run down other boards asking us for comments. I actually think every now and then, it makes a certain amount of sense to be just a tiny bit more explicit, and I think it's within our purview to do so, to say, no, not just sort of a random thing at the end of your, which we may or may not.
It's not random. I usually look at the plans, and if there's a jurisdictional issue, then I will bring it up in my
You do a
comments.
good job, but there's a lot of variability on the boards. So thank you for
And
doing
usually
that for us.
that's what they're asking for. Yeah, because they're
You do
usually
it for
looking for
us.
jurisdiction. They're not looking for issues that they feel that maybe another board should be addressing.
But you do a good job looking at jurisdiction for us, because at 10 o'clock at night, I appreciate that. And I'm just saying, the variability is such that I don't mind being explicit.
605 Elm Street is a new application with the planning board, and it is on Elm Street past Turner's Pond on the right, and it is I don't know what the right word is, seminary, religious place.
Is it a mosque?
For people.
temple?
No.
Where is this?
Or what?
It's
Sect
it's a
it
long
is.
driveway, so we've never
Long
seen
driveway.
it.
Big house at the end.
Dalton Wallens?
No,
what?
I'm just
terrorist
guessing by based on what
Where?
everybody.
No.
Religious related? Does it exist or are they building it?
It exists, they're adding to it there.
Is it the castle? It's the castle.
No, it is not the castle.
They're adding.
Can we make that getaway?
No.
Do we have jurisdiction?
Two Hampshires. We do
No.
a castle. Walpole's got a
No
castle.
jurisdiction.
No, no,
I asked, I
have a
made
castle.
comments, I made comments saying, if you're altering 40,000 square feet or more, you need to come before us. They said we calculated everything out. They're adding gardens here, they're adding little portico for a drive-through, little addition. It's not adding up to 40,000 square feet.
I'm gonna drive by tomorrow and see.
I'm just gonna go up and knock on their door.
You don't know me, but I know you.
And then 130 West Street and 25 Spring Street, we did look at another time. That's the brick building after you go under the bridge near the railroad station on the left, driving out of the center. And they are going to be developing a rather dense residential and workspace development there. It does not fall under our jurisdiction.
No more, they won't be disturbing 40,000 square feet or
I
more?
think so. It's really a small, dense area. Did say, if you are, you have to file us.
Okay.
Thank you for vetting those for us, Landis. And I'm pretty sure not all boards vet them as thoroughly.
I think they look to see if there's jurisdiction. They don't look to see if maybe there's comments that they could forward. The building inspector, I mean, he should be on top of if an application has to file for any kind, the building inspector.
That application has to go through the building inspector as well as the other departments, right? When they originally do their filing.
If the, yeah,
I mean, I would think the issues here that would have been, it would have had some
Are we close to
input,
closing the
comment, or
hearing?
something. But,
Are we close to closing the meeting?
is,
I think we've covered the agenda.
do we want to comment to planning board about any of the comments we heard tonight that aren't conservation issues
No,
on Lincoln
nope.
Estates?
I move to close the meeting.
I don't know if we're done yet. Got everything else?
I think we covered everything, Jack.
Okay.
I move to close the hearing. Media.
What? How's it going? I second.
Thank you. All in favor?